the order, if everyone can please rise for the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gregg?
Present.
Trustee Kavanaugh?
Present.
Trustee Rogers?
Present.
Trustee Turkey?
Present.
Trustee Meredith?
Present.
Mayor Nikich?
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda? I need a motion to approve the minutes from December 19th Special Village Board. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 19th, 2018 Special Village Board meeting? So, Trustee Gray.
I'll second.
Second, Trustee Tracy. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Wait, I'm sorry. I wasn't there, so I did not vote.
We show Trustee Rogers as abstention.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2019 Village Board meeting?
I so move.
I'll second.
Trustee Caprio, Trustee Tricky, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll go first. It's very short. As a reminder, Village Hall will be closed on Monday, February 18th in observance of President's Day. Regular business hours will resume on Tuesday, February 19th. Glen, safest community in Illinois. Homer's Snacks used FBI crime data for 300 cities with a population of more than 5,000 to determine which cities are the safest in Illinois. Glen has maintained its number 5 position from last year. So way to go, Glen, Lieutenant. We're proud that we live in a great community. With that, we'll go to the trustees and we'll start with Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick note from the Public Service Safety Committee. 2 years ago, the board passed the ordinance requiring AEDs, or defibrillators, we'll just call them. I can't remember the AED. And at the time it was passed, it was stated that in a couple years the committee would start looking at ways to implement that kind of broader. Right now it applies to only structures that are 100,000 square feet or more, which is like Menards and Meyer and Home Depot, places like that. So we started looking at that at our last meeting, and we're going to start gathering information going forward on what our peer communities do. There's only a couple of them that require AEDs, and what the next steps might be, the next levels of requirements for them. So hopefully we'll be getting some information together and bringing something to the board in the next few months. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Gray. Trustee Trichy.
I have no report.
Reporting for Community Economic Development. Today we had a really nice ribbon cutting for O'Reilly Auto Parts. So just a welcome to O'Reilly and just let everybody know that it is open. Beautiful store. While we were leaving there, I did notice that another store that opened recently, the Dollar Store, this was at 5 o'clock, that parking lot was overflowed to the point where people were doing laps looking for parking. So I think it's just, good for the town and a good sign for that development in general. We did have a meeting last night with CED. We'll be bringing some information before the board here in the near future, but the conversation centered on some gateway signage and wayfinding signage potentials for the town and looking at it from a holistic approach. So we'll certainly be getting details here soon for everybody to take a look at. That's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bergen. Trustee Rogers.
I'll just reiterate that the last Parks update is we're collecting the committee's survey relative to needs assessment in the park. I believe those are due this week, and then we'll put them together and put the consensus together and present that to the board shortly. And just in follow-up, I know we got an email from someone, you know, once the opening discussion that we had at a previous meeting relative to accessing the park at various places, and just, I know you guys were going to follow up with the township and things like that, so I just let them know that we would be following up with them shortly relative to that, so, and no decisions have been made.
Okay. You all set?
That's all.
Thanks, Mr. Rogers. Trustee Caprio.
Reporting on behalf of the Homer Festival Committee, just a reminder, the fest is scheduled for Thursday, June 20th through Sunday, June 23rd, here on the Heritage Park grounds at the Village Hall. We're still working through a lot of details. There's a lot of work going into the movement of the festival, the logistics of how we bring everything over, and working very closely with the Highway Department to assist us with the efforts of doing so, as well as our internal staff. Our committee has been great. We meet on the third Tuesday of the month, which will be next week. There's always updates that we'll have. We're always looking for volunteers. You can call the Village Hall and ask for Sue Stylen currently regarding volunteers. We're trying to put some people in positions as it relates to volunteers to assist with website, general volunteerism of the fest. And we've got many oddball tasks, I guess I should say, that we would require assistance with. So any volunteers that are willing to step up and give back to the community would be great. We are still working on an intergovernmental agreement with the township. We had thought that we wouldn't need one, but the insurance companies do require that we do have one, just because of logistics and parking and pedway traffic through various properties. So we want to make sure that we can get that behind us. And I know the mayor's worked closely with Pam Myers, the township supervisor, to get that done. We hope to have that settled up here in the next week or so. That will conclude my report.
I did have a resident ask, is it possible to get fest hours prior to the end of the school year? Is there anything that needs to be done, or is it just on the day of the fest?
It is really the weekend of the fest, as it relates to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really
The
is.
hours that they have.
I had responded to somebody on social media as well. That's an opportunity for them, but it's not an opportunity probably till the week of, unfortunately. Unless Trustee Gray's on the committee with me, can you think of anything that we would need in the meantime?
I can't offhand, but if we do,
Yeah.
we'll call.
Yeah, and then you can certainly give them my number or Keith's number.
As for your question on pathways with the traffic coming from the township and the library, the highway department is putting a sidewalk through the front of the library right now. The township already has a walkway from their parking lot to the library, so once that's set, it will be fine. We're not going to do anything permanent or stone or anything for if they come through the township between the baseball fields and the football fields. So we're not going to alter anything there.
I don't believe we will. I did say that to you. If there's treacherous weather and we have to either shut that down or have to put some sort of pedway to avoid any liability, I would imagine. Because if it's very soft ground, we could be up for a challenging walk in that area. So we would either shut it down or diverts them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Shut down one to diverse.
No. Just if we get some bad weather and they're coming between the baseball fields and the football fields, we don't want to make a mud pit for them.
Right.
So I mean, in a case like that, I would say just shut down.
I would probably prefer to just shut it down.
Yeah. And
We can't stop people from walking anywhere, but if that's right, you'll risk at some point.
plus, if it was also that bad, I don't think anyone's going to be up there.
Yeah.
So we should be good there. All right, we'll go to the, do we have a report on the treasurer?
No report.
On the village clerk?
Nothing.
Village attorney?
No report, Your Honor.
Public safety officials?
Just a quick one, Mayor.
You got the floor?
Thank you, sir. Sorry, appreciate that. Just want to thank you for mentioning the fifth safest community, Mayor. And We're honored to be part of this community, as I've mentioned in the past, and we can only be this safe by working in conjunction with you, Mayor, the board, the full-time village staff, the other public service entities like Northwest Homer Fire, Homer Township Fire, Homer EMA, and the Highway Department, and the public, and also our businesses. So working together is what makes us as safe a community as we are, and we'll continue to do our best to serve and protect this community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Development Services Director.
Just a brief update on the 151st Street Bike Trail. We will be advertising the project out for bid on March 12th with a scheduled bid opening on March 26th.
Okay.
The goal will be to get the project obviously in place, the contractor in place, and get it ready so that once the weather finally turns, they'll be able to start construction as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
You will look.
Next will be public comment. Thank you, sir. Mr. Rose.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak just for a quick minute. Just want to bring to the board's attention, there's a little difficulty going on in my neighborhood over there relative to automobile speed, and I'd like to just go on record to say that I know it'll get passed on to another committee. I wasn't aware of that, but I can certainly address that at another meeting. It's just, they're moving pretty quick up and down the street.
What street is that? Park Pinnock.
Pinnock Drive, not quite the drive.
All right, so
So,
what we'll do is, the lieutenant's here, I'll give him the address and everything too, so this way we can get Harold out there.
yeah, it might not be fair to have an officer or anybody sit out there because there's nothing posted anywhere. They're going to say, what's the speed limit? And no one's going to know. There's nothing there, so.
Well, most people should know because it's pretty universal throughout, if you're in a subdivision.
Yeah, you would think so. So,
I will, did you by chance go to the public safety?
no, I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I'm pretty new in the neighborhood, so.
How about we do this first? Let's turn it over to Will County, let's see what they do, if they can curb some of the problems that you're having. If not, then we'll bring it up to the safety committee.
Yeah, that'd be great, because whatever we can do, just springtime's coming, so it's getting difficult to back out of the driveway, so.
Okay, and I've got your phone number here, so we'll check it out and then I'll get all of it.
Very good, thank you for your time. And by the way, whoever's in charge of the snow removal, they did a good job this past 30 days. It's been tough on the
That's
guys.
our road district. They did a wonderful job, and the same thing with salting.
Yeah, they did a good job. Tough time, tough 30 days we went through.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Rose. Thank you. Next will be into consent agenda. Am I reading through it? Okay. First, this is all under the consent agenda. Consider for approval the accounts payable for the period of January 25th through February 14th, 2019, in the amount of $701,004.35. Next, consider for approval the January 30th, 2019 special village board meeting minutes. Third, consider the approval for February 5th, 2019 special village board minutes. Four, consider for approval updating 2 outdoor warning siren heads at a cost of $19,102. Fifth, consider for approval HR Greens Addendum Number 1 for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, permit for the Fittiman Creeks Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $18,668.26. Number 6, consider for approval pay estimate number 3 from Austin Tyler Construction, Inc. for the Fittiman Creek Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $258,558.12. Number 7, consider for approval pay estimate number 5 from Integral Construction, Inc. for the Active Core Project at Heritage Park in the amount of $169,007. Number 8, consider for approval pay estimate number 6 from Integral Construction, Inc. for the Active Core Project at Heritage Park in the amount of $36,058. 9, consider for approval Tria Architecture's invoice number 2923 for Heritage Park Master Planning in the amount of $3,583.75. Number 10, consider for approval authorizing the mayor to sign a letter designating the Chicago South End Convention and Visitor Bureau's a village's agency of record. And that's it. I need a motion.
I so move.
Second.
Trustee Caprio, trustee Varian, discussion.
Are all of the bills from A&F are here?
Yes,
Our most recent meeting?
this is from the most recent meeting.
Because I don't see his bill in here.
Oh, so the legal bill is included in accounts payable.
Oh,
It's
okay.
typically included in that.
So it's underneath H1?
Yes. So if you go into the accounts payable, you'll see it in there.
Okay.
Okay. But the rest of them, we're all good?
Yes.
Okay.
You want that fold up, or
Pardon?
do you want that fold, or out of consent?
We normally have that in the consent as a line item.
Yeah, I just didn't see it in here.
Typically, John puts them on EP. It did happen a few months ago where it was added as a consent agenda item, but that's because the former interim village manager did not know that it's always been included as part of AP. If you would like us to have it removed in the future to be added as a separate item, we can do that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important for them to see
Where the money's going?
where the money's going.
Do you want to see it now?
No, I didn't see it in here, but I'll take your word for it.
On page 5.
Do you want me to read it to you? No.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Mansky?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, consider for approval the appointment of Tony Drager to the village's Homer Community Festival Committee. I will know after that. We're gonna, this is for Tony to come on to the festival.
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
And that's a motion to appoint Tony Dravick to the Homer Community Festival Committee, correct?
Yes. All right, is there any discussion on it? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Mansky?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, consider for approval ordinance number 19-005, an ordinance approving amendments to the village code relating to stormwater management. Trustee Gray,
Second.
Mr. Durian, discussion?
Maybe Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, what it is FEMA is finally updating the flood maps, the firm maps, and the flood study for Will County. As part of the requirements, each community is required to amend their code or ordinances to basically reference the new map panels. We had gone back and forth with IDNR, who is representing FEMA, and basically doing the review process on behalf of FEMA. And basically, the easiest way to amend and adjust our code was to actually adopt Will County's stormwater ordinance. Now, we had already adopted that ordinance back in 2003, and the requirement is that we are, as a Will County community, we're required to be to follow at a minimum their ordinance requirements. So what we're doing is we're adopting, basically re-adopting their ordinance, but there is wording in there that basically states that whether their code or our code, whichever is more strict, that will be the one that will override. So anything that we have above and beyond Will County's ordinance in our current ordinance or village code, that will still supersede the county's. There's also a couple minor changes that we're making to a couple of the definitions, and basically that's where we're also referencing the map panels for both Will County and actually Cook County, since we actually have 3 lots located within Cook County limits. So.
Will this assist homeowners that go to refinance their homes that may have been considered in flood zones?
What this is actually doing, it won't change any of that process, but it keeps us in compliance with the flood insurance program. So we're required to do this as part of the flood insurance program and as part of the FEMA maps. So The new maps are going to be much easier to read and understand. The previous maps were from 1995, and they were very basic. They didn't even have all the roads in them, of course. There's been quite a bit of development, especially in Homer Glen, since 1995. So the new maps have more of an aerial background, so it's easier to find your location on the map, and it'd be easier to basically read and understand.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Nice-Patricky?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Motion carries. Going into our workshop items, this is going to be proposed updates to the zoning. VJ, this is yours.
Thank you. So this workshop is in two parts. The first part is we're going to revisit the use tables. We looked at last April, tried to conclude that part, and we prepared the final product for this section. The second part is starting the discussion on the liquor code updates, which will be handled by Jamie Patch. So I'm going to start the first part here. If you recall this use tables, when we looked at it last April, I think it was almost pretty close to final, except we had a comment that we should look at the liquor code section, try to sync with the liquor code before we actually approve it. And over the past 6 to 7 months, that's exactly what we did. In fact, Jenny did extensive research. She's going to present that as a part of this workshop. So before we get to part 2, I would like to point out there are very few minor changes to the use tables since last April. So the first change is we created a new definition for beer and wine boutique shops, which they're going to be added to the liquor code. So we created a definition for them. We also created a definition for craft products. Again, it'll be added in the liquor code. We want to make sure it is defined in the use tables. And the third item is more a question on weight products that came up recently. You might have seen emails from the village clerk, and also our village attorney sent out an email trying to explain the way our code is written and how we can fix it. So that's something I need direction tonight. So right now, whey products are defined under alternative nicotine product in the liquor code. So which is kind of vague, it's not really well defined. And it's also clearly not well defined in the use tables. Right now the code kind of categorizes them under smoke shops and retail. So they are permitted in the C1 through C4 districts under smoke shop retail. So with that, we would like to sort of clean up the code to make it more specific to vape shops. These are suggestions from our village attorney, by the way, the ones on the slides, ABC. So number one, we would like to create a specific definition for the vape product as defined here. Number two, we would like to create a separate definition for vape stores, which would be different from and distinct from smoke shops. And number three, we would like to include the vape stores in the use table, separate from the smoke shops, and clearly define where they would be permitted. So one of the policy questions I have is, do you want them included from C1 through C4, or limit them to C3 and C4 only? So those are some of the policy questions. And also just to give you a background, I know there has been a lot of growth in vape products and vape stores. The FDA is expected to regulate them starting 2022. So between now and 2022, they're going to keep growing. And the prediction is most of them will be wiped out in 2022 when the FDA starts regulating them. So given we still got to deal with them until 2022. So with that, I need some direction on, cleaning up the vape products definitions and where we should allow them.
My first question would be, you're looking for creative definition for vape stores that would be separate and distinct from vape from smoke shops. So is a vape store and a vape lounge, that's two completely different things, right? Whereas like a place that sells tobacco and a smoking lounge are two completely different things.
Yeah, or else they don't need to comment on.
They would be separate. Correct. The whole point here is that the vape stores that have been popping up, there was concern about that. So do we want to be in a situation where we want to restrict those now? Because right now you have no power to restrict them other than they're in a C1 through C4 zone.
Restrict what, the store or the
Or the use, right? That's,
Well, either
like, are we restricting selling the product to vape, or are we restricting that you're vaping on those premises?
Well, there shouldn't be vaping on the premises.
still considered smoking.
Yeah. But what you're talking about is the use of selling vape products in a particular zone. Right now, it's not restricted at all. But this would give an opportunity. Right now, there's really nothing in there for vape. There's no definition for vaping, or what vaping even is. And there's no definition at all what a vape store is. So you'd be cleaning it up by putting those in there and then obviously figuring out where you want those to be located within the village.
And they do sell them now. There's still places that do. That's for smoking. If you look around anyone a vape,
Yeah.
it's 10 times worse smoking out of what they're breathing.
It's a big club.
Compared to a cigarette. I mean, just here for a couple seconds.
Right, but I mean, like, if you look at somebody that sells liquor, we have packaged liquor sales, but you can't consume, you know, where you bought that. So that's how I look at vaping. It's like if you're selling the product, if you're selling just those pieces and parts and paraphernalia, you know, that's a pretty standard use, I think. But, you know, wanting to restrict the actual vaping, you know, to me, vaping is the verb, you know, that's the actual doing of it. Right. To have a vape store.
Well, in some of the vape stores, they also sample. So like you get different types of juices, not that I vape, but if you put it like in this thing, you can just sample it while you're there. So they can people are either sampling it or smoking it while they're there. So what are we trying to restrict, the whole thing in general? I mean, it's a question for all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I don't
It's like
believe
when you
we
buy a
can.
pack of cigarettes, you can't just light up a cigarette at the gas station, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't believe we can outright ban them. We can restrict them, maybe limit them to one zoning district, like C4, C3, or C4. I mean, we could do that.
What does that gain us?
I mean, my personal opinion is I don't think we should restrict the sale of it.
Yeah.
But there is certain things that can go in it, like hemp products or those things, which that's a whole nother topic. But I think, you know, the sale of the product itself, I don't have a problem with keeping. I don't think they should be smoking it in a lounge or in the store, I should say.
I don't know a lot about this product. Do you have to be a certain age to buy this?
18.
Oh, you do?
I think it went up to 21 last
Oh, it
year.
did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
think
not
it's-
going on.
Is it
Okay.
21 statewide or is that?
Statewide.
Okay.
So is CDD asking us, okay, do you guys only want to see this next to a product where you have to be 21 to buy? Or are you asking us, can this be sold at Jewel in the red aisle, or, you know, I guess that's what my question is.
I guess the first question would be, do we want vape lounges? Because then we work backwards, right?
You
The
can't
way
have a
cigar
vape lounge.
lounges, right?
So then we would have a separate item for vaping on. I have no problem selling, not me, but people selling the product. We shouldn't restrict people's livelihood and how they want to spend their time.
But we have cigar lounges too,
Yeah.
so tomato.
But we don't have hookah lounges.
No.
So, I'm sorry, can you ask the question of what you're looking to answer for? Because I think we're all over up there.
Yeah. So we're going to create a new definition of vape stores, which will be separate from the smoke shops. So the question is, what zoning districts do you want vape stores to be in? You know, C1 through C4 or just one district? Eric Devine.
One question, BJ, is do we know, have you been able to kind of take a look and see where they currently located? Do we have that information
The
yet?
ones are by Bell Road, they're in the C3 or C4 zoning mostly, not in the neighborhood commercial type
So
location.
right now, there's none in C1 and C2?
Not that I know of. So, yeah, that's one of the question. And also that I would like Eric to clarify the difference between retail we do in the smoke shops versus a standalone vaping lounge. Can you clarify that?
Well, in terms of a vaping lounge, I'm not exactly sure what that is. Are you talking about a hookah shop?
Well, you can consume on site.
Okay, yeah. That's a smoking lounge, basically,
So
where you're able to consume on site.
could the board ban the vaping lounges and allow just retail?
Most people that do the vaping already know what they like, know what they want. They're gonna go in, they're gonna buy it, they're gonna leave. To have someone in a store and then have them start vaping, myself, I've smoked for 22 years. I don't think it's a good idea. There's enough warnings on it.
That would
It's
be
still,
legal
it's still.
to like, to walk into like, let's say, you know, a tobacco store and they can't light up there.
Right, they can't light up a cigarette, they can't
But
light
they
up a
can't
cigarette.
light up this either.
Well, it's not lighting up, it's, I mean, there's no fire to it.
It's like a battery.
It's an electronic problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr.
Right,
Mayor,
all right,
can
well,
I-
it's-
just a brief history when I get a chance. I've been working on this with Janie and BJ for about a year.
Go ahead.
The board passed a moratorium in 2015, and then they extended it another 3 months. And the original intent of the moratorium was to investigate vaping. But at some point in that next 6 months, that kind of didn't happen. We do have documentation from the former director of planning and zoning who did survey surrounding communities to see what they were regulating. At the end of the day, when we did do the zoning code update, that never got incorporated, including the banning of hookah lounges, unfortunately. All of these things should probably be incorporated. We have 22 locations that currently are allowed by law to sell vaping products. And like Trustee Nancy was saying, even though they're not supposed to be sampling the product, they are. I have seen it firsthand. So it depends on how far you want to go to enforce what is being done. But the gas stations can sell the vaping products, and even though the law changes I don't necessarily know that that is being enforced by the people who are selling the product.
A couple of things to BJ and to your question on smoking lounge, to make sure everybody's up to speed on this. Under your definition, smoking lounge is a cigar bar, a place where you can smoke. Hookah lounges, vaping lounge, that sort of thing, right now is prohibited. It's specifically exempted out of the smoking lounge. So right now, you do not have in place somewhere where you can go in and use a vaping lounge, if you will.
So if I buy my vaping product at one of these 22 stores, I can't go into the cigar lounge and smoke that vaping product. I can. I have the chance of getting caught.
Excuse me.
Are you saying it's banned statewide or nationwide, or? are you
No,
just
just in
saying-
the village.
That language was never added to the village code after the moratorium was lifted. It never made it in.
So it's,
I'm sorry, what are we talking about?
so it's limbo.
The banning of hookah and vaping.
No, I'm looking at it right now in your code.
Okay.
Smoking lounges it specifically exempt hookah lounges and states that those are defined as drug paraphernalia and they're not permitted.
Right, but if you pull up the language in that section of the code, are you looking at the?
I'm looking at your ordinance.
Okay.
Smoke shop, you're right, they shouldn't be mixing and using in there as well. So Madam Clerk is correct, they shouldn't be doing that on site. So that's a no-no. But right now, smoke shop is still, I think if you want to make sure that you're defining what vaping is, create a definition of vaping shop, so that way you can have a better rein on these and better control. And if you want to get into vaping lounges and do that, we can outright state that they're not permitted. But as it stows right now, smoking lounge in the definition specifically exempts hookah bars, hookah cafes, and hookah lounges. So
Does hookah fall under, I mean, does vaping fall under the hookah?
it's not real clear.
No, it's not there, okay.
But the whole point is, we're not looking for lounges.
Right.
They want to sell the product, that's fine, because like Trustee Gephardt said, we're not here to police it.
Right.
But for someone to walk into a store and walk into something like that, you shouldn't be exposing them to it if they don't want it either. And the law basically is you're not supposed to smoke inside the building. You want
The
to do
only
your own
trick
house.
is that we allow the cigar. That's the only catch.
But it is strictly for, they know what they're doing when they're going in there.
That-
They know
Well,
that
if they
they're
had a
going to
hookah lounge or a vaping lounge, they would know what they're going in for.
be. Well, but not necessarily. They're going in there to buy a product. That doesn't mean that they're.
That's a different thing.
Right.
That's where you purchase the product, but the lounge is where you can smoke it.
Right,
Buy
but
it and
but
smoke
we
it.
don't have a lounge.
Well, it's unclear, right, if we're allowing it or not. Correct? Because the vape shop, or not, I'm sorry, the hookah lounge. Oh,
The hookah lounge is also,
sorry.
we're not allowing them, but we don't have a vape lounge where they can go in and they
Right.
can smoke. And I don't even think people are excited about that. That's just the way they get the smoking of the cigarette out of the way, they do the vape. We don't have any lounges right now. We're not looking to put the lounges in unless you guys decide to do something different, but we do have them selling the product, and from what I'm hearing, no, there is an issue with them selling the product.
So here's the only issue with selling the product, though.
Is sampling.
And would you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure about this, but the cigar lounge that we do have, I think they sell the vaping products there. So you're selling vaping products in a room that you can smoke cigars.
But they also know that when they go into the smoking lounge for the cigars, that that's what they're doing. They're
I'm guessing, I don't know that to be certain, but I'm pretty certain I'm fairly certain they sell vaping products. So if they do, they're selling it in a place where you can smoke cigars, understanding that it's a cigar lounge, you're supposed to smoke cigars and maybe cigarettes there?
I don't think there's,
Maybe there's no cigarettes in there.
Really? Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't think it would honestly.
They're both nicotine products, I don't know why you couldn't.
I don't know.
It's something, rather than guessing, let's find out for sure, and then we can, because we're not going to address doing a lounge for the vaping anyhow.
So I guess BJ's asking, do we want to include not having the vaping lounges?
Right. Yes, we don't.
Because we have to clarify that.
Yeah,
We
just
don't
to,
allow hookah, and now we are not going to allow vaping lounges.
That's
right, so we're only back to vape shops retail only. You want to follow the smoke shops retail and allow them in C1, C2, C3, and C4.
Right, can I ask a question? So I'm looking at the use table too, and I see it's permitted in 1 through 4, and smoking lounges are special use in 1 through 4. Excuse me, and you had asked if maybe we wanted to restrict vape products to just 3 and 4, I believe it was.
That's correct.
The lower the number, the closer you're getting to the neighborhoods. But really, I mean, we're splitting hairs there. If we're going to allow a smoke shop in a C1. And can vape shops, a shop selling nothing but vape products, can that exist on its own, or is it kind of an ancillary use or sale to a smoke shop having other tobacco products and things of that nature?
Yeah, right now, under the current code, they're accessory to the smoke shop. What we're proposing is vape shop retail as a separate retail.
But I'm asking, I mean, has anybody seen a store that only sells vape products, or is it really kind of a, it's a 7-Eleven of the tobacco world?
Yeah,
Basically,
vape outlets.
you're selling tobacco products and everything. We're probably not going to have one that specifically only sells vaping products. So it's probably going to be, a combination use of traditional tobacco products as well as the vaping products. So to me, permitting of C1 through, if we're going to continue to permit a smoke shop in C1 through C4, like I said, to me, it makes sense then to continue to allow that vape product to be sold, side by side with tobacco products. I know there's a fine line here between, we've used the word hookah and hookah lounge, and when you get into head shops, we want to obviously make sure that we're staying clear of that as well. So.
Yeah. But our understanding right now is we don't have an issue with the retail end of a vape product. If they want to sell it long, if probably a good idea would be going to some of these places and actually see I mean, the reason we don't know is because we don't do it. So we're not quite sure what it is, but for the retail, everyone's on board with retail. Let's find out if it works with cigarettes, if it works with cigars, but they're still not supposed to be smoking in a closed area, because there's no reason for someone else to breathe it in.
I guess one question I have is, how many cigar lounges do we have? Just one?
One.
Do they allow you to smoke cigarettes and vaping products and hookah or whatever else is out there inside
You
the
bet,
cigar
man.
lounge?
I have, but anytime I've been there, it's been cigars only.
So, and that's a phone call away, you know, because it's really not going to interfere with it, because they already have the permit to do the smoking. We can find out with a law change in the 21 now for the vaping. They're supposed to be moving the cigarettes up too. Did they move the cigarettes up to 21?
That I'm not sure. Do you know, Eric? Did they move it up?
I think they did. Because I knew they were going to raise it because
Not as of last week.
when did they do the vaping?
They didn't turn you?
I believe that was August of 2018. That's when the news came out, so.
All right, then for now, you know, we really don't have a solid answer on this because we still have a lot of issues where we don't know. But this is something for homework-wise we can get done in a couple days. No vaping, smoking shop, well, no vaping to smoking.
No vaping lounge.
Yeah, we don't want any lounges. But as for the retail end of it, we're fine with it. We'll make a couple phone calls to find out what it is. We'll go by the cigar store. And let's go into the stores that we're selling, see there's 22 of them. Let's make sure they also know that it's limited to 21 and up and see exactly what they do. So.
Okay, sounds good.
But they shouldn't be smoking and
And when you say we, who's we? Who's doing this?
whoever wants to help, we can divvy it up and let's just take a look. I mean, I'd like to know exactly what it's all about too. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. If you guys want to grab some, which would be definitely helpful. If you don't, trust me, I do understand.
Who has the list of 21?
Say 22.
22.
The list clerk.
And do we have a list of the 22?
Yes.
Okay, so we can get a list, and then you're going to spend 5 minutes and just see what it is. But I mean, it's also good for us to update them, because I didn't know they moved it up to 21. I knew it was in works. It's not anything that the banners up. So, all right,
So, do
so
you have something else, BJ?
No, just a question on the use tables. So is this good enough to bring back as an ordinance? Or do you still have any open questions on the use tables?
Do you want to find a final answer to the vaping and put that in there as far as because right now it's
Yeah, we'll clean up the vaping part of it.
vaping or
As I'm reading, just quickly, I don't think Illinois completely passed. I think it's.
No, it was passed, and then the former Governor Brown vetoed it, and then didn't override his veto. The city of Chicago raised it to 21.
Okay.
Do we have restrictions of what can be sold in the vape store?
Correct? You got anything more than
It's not a
restrictions?
legal product, is it?
Well,
yeah, it's not illegal, but
They're not selling pot.
Right, but some people
Yeah.
are concerned about this, what is it called, CBD oils or something like
CBD
that?
oils are two ways. One with the hemp in it, where you're going to get high, but still some THC. One without, and then it's more medicinal, trying to end aches and pains and stuff like that. And they sell
CBD does
that-
not contain THC at all.
Yeah, what now?
CBD does not contain THC.
Right, the regular CBD doesn't. But
And
they
we allow
also,
that to be sold in home run, CBD.
yes, but it's
It's not illegal, it's just
Okay.
it's hemp
I don't
based.
know, okay.
If anything that has THC, you have to have a dispensary. And you don't have any of those in Homer Glen, so there should be nobody in Homer Glen selling cannabis.
yeah.
Excuse me, I use the slang term. But I mean, people should be more concerned about them blowing up in their face. That's all.
Well, yeah, they had a guy last week that died from vaping. Took a choke off it, and the pen blew up, and he had it in his mouth and killed him.
So just to kind of summarize, BJ, it sounds like we need to do, we want to create a definition for vape, a definition for vape stores. And then I guess here's the big question, in terms of smoking lounges, do you want to specifically exclude vaping from smoking lounges to make sure that it's crystal clear, or do we want to create a vaping lounge definition? But it doesn't sound like you guys want to improve those anywhere anyway, so Maybe we'll just include in that definition of smoking lounges, where it exempts hookah and hookah products, we would also include vaping. That vaping would not be permitted in smoking lounges.
It seems like they're one and the same, so I would say if we're not allowing hookah, why would we allow vaping?
Just to make it clear though.
Yeah, that's the thing that I agree with.
Yeah,
If you're gonna allow one, you gotta allow the other.
Right.
If you're not gonna allow one, then don't allow the other.
And then I guess the other question is clarify what they can smoke in a cigar lounge.
Losing any type of tobacco product and looking at your ordinance, so you could probably smoke cigarettes there as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of specifically taking the vaping out of the smoke lounge, because otherwise you can easily reverse that equation, and it becomes a vape lounge that allows smoking as well.
Right.
You know, and its primary use is other than vaping, and we have a backdoor vape lounge.
Does that help you?
And the
You
part
know what, we're
of
just finding out something. I mean, this is a learning curve for us right now, and we're doing a good job. Okay, so BJ, you got your answer on that? As for yeah, and so she's got a list of 22, and if we can all grab through and take a walk at it, all we gotta do is ask a couple questions. But I would like to find out for sure if the 21 is it just floating, or because it was vetoed?
Bulk tobacco and vape is still 18.
Okay, all right. So I mean, we can't, but in the census to say anything on that because we're being misinforming them unless we decided, because if City of Chicago did it, means that we could do it too if we wanted to. Just eliminate it completely. So I mean, if that is the case, we can make it 21. So, I mean, if you guys want to think about that, or if you want to just say, yes, let's just make it 21. I mean, I don't want to, they're going to get it no matter where they go. So, what do you think?
I'm okay with keeping the smoking age 18.
Yeah, and whatever the state is, I mean, you can join the military at 18 and go, you know, you're on the same consent, you move far and wide to do nefarious things, but you can't smoke a cigarette.
I just know a lot of people come from Cook County to buy their cigarettes here, you know.
It's just something better, to me, better set at a state level or some other level than competing towns. Ours are more stringent than next door.
And we could lose a lot of business because of it. All right, so we'll leave that alone. So,
Just one thing to consider too, any of these smoking lounges, cigar lounges, have to be an independent building, so you're not going to see them in strip malls and things like that. So it really does regulate a lot.
right.
Yeah.
Joe, could you have Lieutenant Holly step up and confirm what you guys talked about in terms of residue from drug paraphernalia and how that pertains to hookah pipes?
Sure.
I believe what we talked about before with the Sheriff's Department is drug paraphernalia, hookah pipes and things like that. And it's not considered drug paraphernalia unless there's actually residue in the pipe.
If it's being used for,
Right.
for illicit purposes.
Right.
Well, most of the time, if someone goes out and buys a hookah and goes out and buys a pipe, there's going to be drug
There's gonna-
in it.
exactly.
So,
But it's hard to prohibit like hookahs and certain pipes in these businesses that are selling them unless they're not really drug paraphernalia, unless they have the residue with it.
If recreational marijuana becomes legal, how is this legal?
well, then you can change some things. Right now, it's not.
We'll cross that.
What's that?
We'll cross that bridge.
I think it's no different than like the smoking papers, where you were able to buy the paper, because some people like to roll their own cigarettes. You can't, you know, the use after the fact is you can't control it from point of sale.
They could use big pens for some of that too, you know.
Sure.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I walked in after dealing with something else, you guys.
Okay, so VJ, then you've got your, and we'll let you know about the vape shops as soon as we get them.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'll talk to you in the next time.
Good evening.
So what's next then?
Liquor. Let's just talk about all of them. Okay, so this project actually, with the time that we took in doing some research, really goes beyond just syncing it up with the use table. We took the opportunity to do the research and see what was going out in the market, and
It really proposes to engage additional economic development opportunities. Consumer demand has really changed, and consumers are looking to have an experience, and these next few slides kind of just depict situations where this is going on. Business owners want to cater to this demand and enhance their businesses. And then municipalities all over have been working to make liquor more readily available in places where it typically hasn't been found. And it's been successful. Rather than piecemeal an approach, here's an opportunity to really just take an overall look at the village's liquor classifications. A comprehensive update would make the code more relevant to the market. It would make it more business friendly and also more competitive by enabling recruitment of new business concepts. So the staff memo develops the conceptual framework for a number of new liquor classifications. This slide summarizes the policy questions. All of this was in your packet in terms of requesting direction from the board. The CED committee discussed potential liquor code updates in 3 different meetings, and their input was incorporated into the actual way that the framework for each one of these new classes could be put together. Their feedback is summarized on the first and second page of the staff memo, and the minutes for those meetings were attached to the packet as well. Staff also previewed these proposed updates with the village clerk throughout the process. The next step following this workshop, if we do have direction to get going, would be to have the village attorney draft an ordinance with any desired potential amendments to the code for the board's future consideration. And the updated goal on the timeline here, which is a lot more rational, would be probably to come back at the second meeting in April for the village board with another workshop to take a look at the draft ordinance. So I've just, in terms of an overall policy considerations, there are 3 policy considerations that do impact each liquor classification that's been proposed to take a look at here. It's considering the availability of food with liquor consumption, the video gaming policy, and the annual liquor license fees. I want to just go through each one of these really quickly before we get into the individual classifications. So tonight, this was in your packet, but just for easy reference, this is the one-page handout that kind of matches up food availability with our current liquor class schedule. And it shows basically how our code is addressing the availability of food with liquor service now. The right-hand column is addressing free liquor tasting, which is one of the new aspects to be added to our current classes. And it's indicated on the right-hand side of the table. So it's really just suggesting that that be opened up for the package sale type of liquor licenses. And the one call out in red is the recreational facility. I just want to note right now the current code requires the language is when food is being served from a restaurant on premises. So we do have a restaurant definition in our code, and I think the interpretation would be that a recreational facility would have to have that, meet that restaurant definition where you're fully cooking and preparing food on site in a full kitchen to be applicable for a license itself. If we take a look at how food would be available with the proposed classes, this also just shows how that would work. And again, the classes that could have tasting would include the new beer wine boutique, also the craft product. And I just want to highlight the call outs in red again here, the recreational facility. That's not a new classification, it's an existing one. We're proposing to actually update the current Class K recreational facility to make it relevant to the market. And if that was to be done, we would be actually relaxing the restaurant requirement for that particular class to just address how the current business concepts are handled out there. Food's available, but it's not necessarily fully cooked and prepared.
prepared. It may be warmed, it may be the salad, it may be the wrap, something that's much easier to put together. You don't necessarily have to have a full kitchen. Wow, look at that. That was fancy. So anyway, also I just want to also point out the other item in red is tasting would be prohibited in gas stations. That doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, so we just kind of want to cover that right up front. And then, you know, just as we're looking through these different classes tonight, you have this easy reference, because I know that's a question that comes up often. Also, video gaming, staff didn't want to actually create any new situation where we're opening a door for a new way to open up video gaming potential. So none of these classes, right now, staff is recommending just prohibit video gaming in all of these classes. You've got it in your restaurants. We have our definitions for how that's supposed to happen. And the call out in the bright red is that we already have a prohibition for gas stations to have video gaming. So it is entirely up to the board and the board's prerogative if you want to create video gaming opportunity in any of these new classes. But just right from the start, we're not going there. So, and then the other annual fees should also be taken a look at. Any new classes that are created, we would need to have fees assigned. This is what the current fee schedule looks like. The call out here is the last one on Brewery Pub, the Class N. That $3,000 in addition to the cost of a Class A or a Class B license seems to be a little out of whack. So if we're doing a comprehensive update, here's an opportunity to kind of take a look at that. And what I would suggest is that with fees, that would be something we can do at the tail end. Whatever direction the board has for new classifications to move forward on, we can have the attorney develop the language for that, and then we could also work with the attorney and staff could come up with a proposal for how to deal with fees that would reflect kind of what's going on in our current fees, having it make some sense. And we could also deal with this Class N at the same time and just bring all that back to the board. Or it could be a two-step process. So however the board would like to deal with that. So in terms of kind of just a general overview, that kind of concludes that overview. From this point, you have the slides and the staff memo with all of the details in it. The staff memo really went into that level of detail to try to flesh it out and help you understand how it could work. Also, it was done with in the spirit of understanding how businesses are operating out there and how other communities have worked with businesses that are trying to be a little bit different, and so they need these code changes to make that work. At this point, to help structure the discussion, we can go, this is what we did with CED, we can go through each proposed new liquor classification. If it pleases the board, I can present the highlights as a quick summary and then open it up for your discussion so that we have kind of like a structure to the discussion. If you are comfortable and want to just jump into each one about my summary, we can do that too. It's completely up to how the board would like to do it tonight. And then the village attorney can help field questions as well, and we can get started with liquor tasting. So how would you like
I'd like to hear your overview, because I've read through it several times.
Sure.
I'd like to hear somebody else's opinion on it, but please, I'll get it, William.
Is that good? Okay. So the first policy question is, should the village board permit liquor tasting for certain liquor classifications? So free tasting in accordance with state law is allowed without the requirement for food service. So that's an important point just to know right off the bat. And then, so then again, the handout shows the proposed liquor classes where appropriate, that would be appropriate for tasting. This is free tasting without a charge. And of course, we would exclude gas stations. So the types of alcoholic liquor, whether it's beer, wine, or distilled spirits, it can be specified relevant to each liquor class where we say, yes, free tasting would be fine. And because it would involve already a liquor license holder, it's just allowing them to have tasting. It does not involve a separate liquor classification, license or annual fee. We would just update the classes where tasting is going to be allowed and put that language in there. So that's basically liquor tasting. Would you like to discuss that one?
So the second to the last bullet point where it says types of alcohol, liquor, that can be tasted should be specified relevant to your liquor classification. That means if I have a beer and wine classification, I can't be sampling tequila.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it should make sense.
Right.
It should make,
I
yeah.
can't step out of that lane and just bring in any kind of alcohol.
Correct.
And is free tasting the first bullet point? Is that how you end up with tastings in places like Meyer or Jewel or Kenwood, that you can give away free samples as long as you have a liquor license?
Correct.
But that's the distributor giving those samples away.
Yeah,
Under the liquor license of the holder.
Right.
So the holder just can't crack open a beer and let people sample it.
Right, you need to enable it.
Okay.
Yeah,
You need to,
enable it. Would you agree with that, Eric? Is that technically correct, or do you want to?
Define what you mean by enable.
The municipality would provide for that in the code. It would specify in the code that that activity could take place.
Exactly, yeah.
so if you were to go to a liquor store per se, and it's not a tasting, but their staff says, do you want to taste this product? They're not supposed to be able to do that.
That's my understanding. Would you agree, Eric?
That's a good question, because if it's allowed at the store, I mean, I don't know I'm not sure how the state defines it.
A perfect example is I see a bottle of wine that I've never purchased, but I'd really like to taste it, and they know that they can sample it out to other people who may ask the same question. And they pop open a bottle, give you a little shot of wine and say, taste it, and then you buy a bottle.
They may be able to.
Yeah, you know what, I think maybe what the situation actually is that the state allows for free tasting under certain, specifically how it's handled. If it's handled a certain way, free tasting is possible. This would just be to acknowledge it in our code, and we can specify where we're comfortable having that kind of tasting going on.
Yeah, I don't mean to get that granular, but
Yeah, correct.
this opens up a whole can.
Well, yeah, the state is going to control who, if it's the distributor, or if it's somebody that works for the business, or that's going to be controlled by the state.
But I can't go into the liquor store.
Well, if I can give
Bottles
it,
and asking people if they want to drink it.
well, if I can give a sample, or an example, at Konos, we hold a liquor, or Mr. Kono holds a liquor license, and for us, we have to purchase the alcohol outright. So when we have like a beer fest and people come and taste the beer or wine, whiskey fest, whatever, we have to buy the booze directly from the distributor. So the distributors, they still come out and do the sampling, but we have to purchase it ourselves. So I don't know how that would work in the stores.
Well, most of the times, if you go by Kenwood's, they have the distributor come in there, and most of the time they're giving out,
Yeah.
because they're trying to sell the product.
Right. It's the distributor or the brewery or whoever it may be that comes and does it.
Yeah, but that's inventory.
Kenwood isn't buying the alcohol and opening it up and having his employees sample it.
Well, they are, because the inventory is theirs. I would imagine that Meyer or Jewel, that inventory is their inventory that they've purchased, when you think, or is that consigned?
I believe the person who's actually providing the tasting, physically pouring the samples, is, under state law, has to be registered or something. There's a requirement that the state has to control it that way.
I'm sure they have
Facet
to
testing, right?
Exactly.
Right. But I mean, if the employees in a liquor establishment all have to be Bassett certified.
That's
right.
So I mean, technically, I mean, under that law, then I could sample or give the samples away at Konos, correct? So can Kenwood do the same? Can Jewel do the same?
Well, I've gone around all of them, they've had liquor tasting, but I've never really seen the employees, some wear the shirts, you go to Kenwood's, they're all wearing shirts, people that work there. I've never seen one person from Kenwood's serving the liquor to anyone. It's like when Dan Aykroyd went in there for his tequila or his vodka, whatever it was, his people served.
Right. It's usually the distributor.
Because otherwise, boy, there's a lot of policing to do if this is the case. You know, if anyone can give out liquor inside the store, or any employee, any one that worked for the company.
I mean,
Well, does
Yeah.
that open up the gates for any place to have like a whiskey fest? Or like a beer fest? Because it's sampling.
Right, but you still check the IDs and everything when you're doing it because
Yeah, but
you're responsible for it.
You may allow tasting or sampling, they're still going to be subject, there's state requirements that they're going to have to follow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's not something that you guys are necessarily controlling. That's something that they need to comply with the state.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, they risk their liquor license.
Correct. Right.
So I guess the big question is, I mean, it sounds like you guys might be in favor of tasting. The question is, in what?
We're talking about it.
Well, right now we have tasting that's basically state allowed, state mandated, but whatever you want to call it. At places like package places. I'm trying to look beyond this because we have 30 pages here of new uses possibly coming on, nail salons and places like that. So it's kind of like, all right, get out of the mentality of Kenwood. And what they've got in inventory is Nancy's nail salon or Bob's nail salon. Sexist here, but is that suddenly going to become the place to go
That's why I said it.
to have?
Is this opening up Pandora's box for whiskey fest at a nail salon? That's my point. Do you know what I'm saying?
Because it does say conducted on without the requirement for food service. So,
Well, we have had just about every business come to us because we have the hair salon, especially for the women wise because they keep saying that they like to sit in a chair and have a glass of wine and everything like that.
But we can restrict the sampling at a hair salon or nail salon, correct?
Yeah, this is actually only, as far as the current classes goes, talks about doing it in the package store environment. And then also in the beer wine boutique, which by the definition of what that is that it's their primary business is selling, beer and wine. And then in the craft product situation, where they're actually manufacturing on site, but you could also have the opportunity for like a tasting or tap room situation, and you can have tastings in there too.
Jamie, if I could just interject, going back to the zoning code text amendment for the beer and wine boutique, the verbiage there states, a premise where sale of beer and wine is the primary business. And then it goes on to say, it can either adjoin the premise of a restaurant or operate as a standalone restaurant. So, is it a restaurant that has, I'm a little lost there because a restaurant's a fairly sizable investment. Are we still requiring full kitchen and everything? If we were to go with this language the way it is, or are you saying they are not going to have a food requirement? Because right there you're saying it can either adjoin one or it can be a standalone restaurant.
So are you ready to move on to beer wine boutique?
Well, I think we're kind of bouncing around, and I apologize if I'm the one who's leading that parade, but.
So, yeah, I'd like to, if we can maybe leave tasting there for a moment and move on, and then I'll try to explain that. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, so, it does apply to where this is the primary business. And, more commonly, it may be known as a tasting room or a tap room. This is the situation where both of these things exist out there. It can be associated with a restaurant, say like, Cooper's Hawk, right? Restaurant, you walk into their tasting room, right? When you walk into their building, or it could be a standalone operation. So that's where the distinction.
Right. I'm just saying on the second page of this handout that it literally says standalone restaurant. So it says it can either join a restaurant or be a standalone restaurant.
Standalone, correct.
Not a standalone restaurant.
No, it can be a business separate from a restaurant.
Right. That's how the zoning text amendment ordinance says.
Oh, it should be standalone, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's where I was
But
confused when
restaurant
you were
should
saying it, because I was saying that a restaurant's a fairly sizable investment.
Right.
And if you're saying that they have to build a kitchen, but the primary focus
It can be a
is.
standalone operation
Establishment.
without a restaurant. That's
So the word restaurant in that text amendment.
Thank you, that was a good catch.
It should be establishment. That's been when in her summary of things, she refers to it as a standalone establishment. I think it may have been a typo.
Now, would these beer or wine boutiques be selling packaged goods as well?
Okay, so,
You're just
yes.
going in there to sample.
Because, well, no, it has a range of activities that can happen. So you can sell by the drink, you can do package retail sales, you can do tastings, you can do classes or seminars, and the state has ways that it specifies what you can do when it comes to that. So it is a range of activities there, and this would be one of those situations where tasting would make sense, it would be appropriate, because that's their primary business. So the situation where it does not involve a restaurant associated with it or part of the operation is they typically allow patrons to bring their own food, or they'll have menus from area restaurants, and they'll even partner with food trucks. And community codes differ on this. So, in the staff memo, there was an attempt to give you several examples of how, just to show you how it's done out there, and but also to demonstrate that it happens both ways, associated with a restaurant and also just as a tap room or a tasting room by itself. So it's not done completely without food, but it can be done without the requirement for a full-blown restaurant where the meals are being prepared on site. Food is always encouraged and available somehow, but it's not necessarily fully cooked and prepared on site in a restaurant with a hood and all that.
So that's like a
Correct, correct. So, there'll always be some kind of food, even it can be prepackaged food, and it can be snack food. I think one of the places in Tinley or Mokina, they have like an artisan pretzel maker that provides these, lovely pretzels that have cheese baked into it and all this kind of stuff, and it'll help you soak up alcohol and stuff and not get over your limit. But so that's the kind of thing that you'll see out there, not necessarily the full restaurant. So now the CED was a little concerned about, okay, is this going to, we just don't want to have create another bar. And how can we narrow this somehow? And the thought came up, should we just limit it? Now, wine is typically not something that you need to worry about, but with the beer, maybe limited to craft beer. So that could, because it attracts a different kind of consumer. And there's actually craft beer aficionados that go to different communities and try different places where they are available, because that's fun and entertainment, that's adult entertainment for them. So that's one way of handling that could maybe fix that. I just want to point out that there's a very popular business in downtown Downers Grove on Main Street called the Cellar Door, and they do sell both craft beer and non-craft beer on their menu. They do, and the place is really popular, and they just have small plates. They just have cheeses and cured meats and light dishes. But they're very busy. And that's the kind of business where I could see that being very popular here. And it would be nice to be able to invite that kind of business into the community. So,
I'm open for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think in CED, one of the concerns that we discussed at length on this was we don't allow taverns in Palmer Market, right? And does it open up a potential loophole that someone could exploit? And differentiating between the Pollyanna and, the tavern.
47th Street Tavern.
Yeah. Because we've built those things into the code to require the food and to avoid some of those things. And we just want to be careful. I can say, I think everything in here, we went through it, as Jane said, 3 times, right? We went through this and had many of the same discussions back and forth and what ifs. Jane's been great about, sometimes it's easiest to give real world examples of the type of use that exists in another town that we're all familiar with, Pollyanna being one of those, right? All these things were discussed at length, and that was one of the concerns of figuring out a way to CED has been in favor of tasting rooms, right? And I think the goal of all of this in general was to attempt to not be reactive as people come to us with things and then say, okay, how do we pigeonhole them into our current classifications, and more so to give Janie and others the tools to us be proactive, get ahead on some of these codes to be able to go and sell the type of establishments we want to attract to Homer Glen and say, look, here's our classification, this is, you know, we're ahead of the curve. So that was the goal of all of this. That was the one sensitivity is, as we go through it, make sure we're not blindly opening loopholes that could be exploited.
I like the idea of the craft and wine, and then should a old seller come down the line or something like that come down the line, look at it at that point. But I think it's better to have a tighter line on it and then address it if we have to cross that bridge if it comes out.
But I love the mindset of just being creative with getting ahead of it and being able to offer destinations to people coming into town and you know, with various streets coming online and economic development opportunities. I think it's huge.
So Beth, are you saying you're okay with the craft and wine, just not domestic?
For now, I think that's a smart way to approach it so that you're not opening up yourself to potential loopholes like a tavern.
Is there a limit or minimum of how many different types of crafts they have to sell?
No.
So I
think they're going to want to sell multiple, because if they just sell a couple, there's a lot of people that don't look ahead of their...
My point is, if we did do a domestic, then people can do domestic wine and one craft beer, and then that's the craft. That's why I was trying to figure out where Beth was going.
Well, what defines a tavern?
I don't think the issue or concern is so much with wine, because wine has, that's a different consumer also, and you can't really drink as much wine as you can beer because of the alcohol content. So I think the CED thought that just having wine and craft beer as your way you frame this would be a way to...
Well, I was originally saying domestic too, that's why I was trying to see if that would prevent a loophole if you didn't do domestic as well.
There's a...
I think most craft beers are going to be considered domestic. It's a matter of the size of the microbreweries, craft breweries, limited batch, things of that nature,
Right.
versus these mass-produced, short type beers.
There's a business called the Open Bottle Craft Beer Shop and Tap Room in Tinley, and I think they're probably a good example of what the market would probably want to bring. There are multiple craft offerings there. There's another one in Downers Grove called the Orange and Brew Bottle Shop and Tap Room. And, in the pictures, like in the slides in the beginning, when you saw the pictures of insides of different, and they were labeled which business that was, both of those are in there, and you can see that they're selling multiple brands of craft product because they're attracting that crowd that wants the craft, and those folks want to try different things.
What was Ed E selling originally?
Pollyanna.
Yeah, Pollyanna was what they were originally selling, and then they ultimately actually came in and got a full liquor license to be able to add, offer wine to someone who didn't want beer. And, yeah.
So I must say, when I first read through a lot of these things, at first I thought this is many creative ways of using the word bar, of classifying bar. But as I thought about it further, to Brian's point about, that you guys are trying to make sure that, we're staying just this side of being a tavern or a standalone bar. And to Carlo's point about a destination, I know that Carlo's used that a lot in lots of places that are destinations. In places like this and a few of the others in the categories we're going to look at, they're like experiences. And that's what, the markets do drive for nowadays. It's an experience when people go out. They don't just want to go. You said, what's the definition of a tavern? The first thing that popped in my head was, you go watch It's a Wonderful Life, We sell drinks to men who want to get drunk fast. Basically, that's what a tavern is. But a craft brewery, a craft boutique is a place where I think that, our kids, my kids go out and they drink these things. And their friends who still drink Miller Lite, they get shamed into drinking something else. So, it almost takes the mass market out of the equation. I probably wouldn't sell enough to be in a place like this, where it's more of the experience of going out and having the craft beer. So I do like these.
Yeah, but the thing is, I know the definition of tavern. That's what's our definition. No, but it's a place where liquor is sold and consumed. That's all the definition of a tavern is.
It's not taste.
Right. Yeah. So to me, and maybe I differ.
Often without a kitchen.
Often without a kitchen, correct.
Right.
And to me, serving every other type of brand of alcoholic beverage is, I have no issue with it personally, because you may bring a spouse who doesn't like those crafts, or these stouts, or these other type of things that they might sell. And if you're already providing them an 8.5 or 12% alcohol by volume, and someone wants a 3% alcohol by volume, it's just not.
Yeah, to me, these are the, I think, using the word experience.
Yes, I like it.
Right, it's not, this is where I think we know what we're all talking about, right? We're talking about those experience type places and not the tavern that is, you grab a spot in the strip mall, you throw in a bar, no kitchen, and you serve alcohol, right? And that's why we have the ordinances we have. The legal side of it is when I like to throw it to the attorneys to say, you've got a grasp of what we're looking at, now tell us how we can legally carve that out, right? But the experience thing is I think the key here of the difference in when we talk about some of these things. And that's easier said than I know codifying, but that's why you guys make $3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Would you like to move on to BYO?
Sure.
All right, so once we get past this one, I think it'll get a little bit easier because this one, we have to break it down a little bit. So the village of China did do some work for us earlier, and there was an attachment in your packet. Basically, the village board has discretion on whether and how to regulate bring your own. The reason why it would be a good idea to have a liquor classification that covers BYO is because it would clearly establish what the requirements are here for like holding insurance, having training, resealing open bottles of wine, if they're going to be taken away, that sort of thing. The recommendation is that this is just limited to beer and wine only, so no distilled spirits are being brought in by customers. It's beer and wine only. And obviously it has to be brought in by patrons who are 21 years of age and older. Storage on site would be prohibited. So this is strictly for bring it in, drink it. If you've got, you haven't drank the whole bottle of wine, it can get resealed and you can take that away. Otherwise, everything is consumed on site and that's it. Okay. Package and on-site sales of alcoholic liquor would be prohibited because this is a bring-your-own license. So that would be very clear. And then, while we said in the beginning we're not going to create any doors for video gaming with any of these new classifications, just so you know, the state does not have a liquor classification for BYO. You must have a liquor license before you can get a video gaming license. Therefore, in this case, there's absolutely zero concern that video gaming would be introduced into a situation like this. So that's the beginning part of Bring Your Own. The policy question, beyond whether you would like to create this classification, is the situation of should non-restaurant businesses be eligible for Bring Your Own licenses. So here is where you get into your example of the beauty salons, nail salons, your paint and sip studios. Very common to have them bring in their own. Other different kinds of specialty retail stores may want to offer that during structured activities like, say, cooking classes or any other kind of craft class or special seminar that makes sense for their business. And so we could take a look at 2 subclasses under BYO. And let's just kind of take a look at that before we open for discussion. So for the restaurant, it's a little bit simpler. It would be permitted only in conjunction with the service of a meal. Bingo, we took care of that. And then, of course, employees have to successfully complete the certified training. They can perform the corkage and serving duties, and the restaurant would be allowed to do a corkage fee if they want. In the case of a non-restaurant, it would be permitted only during the time that the customers are actually engaged in and participating in an activity of the business. So it's a service the business is offering, the paint and sip operation or whatever, or a mani-pedi service at a beauty salon. The business would not advertise or otherwise be held out to be a drinking establishment. This is just like the perk that goes, or the added value of the customer experience that goes with a service business. That's crazy when it does that. Must be because I'm taking too long. They can offer a light food menu. This is not a restaurant situation. I mean, that would be onerous to require them to become a restaurant. So, you know, there's no requirement for food service with this. And the exclusion would be a smoking lounge, because that's such a unique use that we should take a look at that separately. So we could also create specifically a BYO classification for smoking lounge. And this would address the unique use. All the regular insurance, training, resealing unconsumed wine bottles would be involved. This could not only handle beer and wine, but distilled spirits, allow them to bring distilled spirits in if they would wish to do that. Again, light food menu or snacks, there would be no requirement for food service. Storage would be permitted. So the two things that are different about a smoking lounge from the other type of business would be distilled spirits would be allowed and storage on site would be allowed. And it would have to be only during business hours. Again, it's not held out to be a drinking establishment. No package sales and no video game. So it kind of takes care of that type of activity in those different environments, and that's the recommendation.
So I have a couple of questions. Jimmy, or Lieutenant College. Open alcohol. Say if I had a 24 case of Miller Lite, and I drink 6 at a place, and I want to take the remaining with me, is that considered open because the case is open, or is it just the case? Like,
you know what? I can only speak to the wine portion of that. That's something I'd have to get back to you on, and for that I apologize. But I know with wine, if you're at a restaurant, you're having a meal, and you buy the wine, you get sealed and then packaged in a tamper-proof bag that shows that you had it. As far as the beer goes, I mean, yeah, I don't want to comment on it until I can.
If the can's open, it's a problem. If the can's unopened.
Right,
Yeah, she's saying if there's leftover cans from a case, say.
Like I can't just drive in my car with 8 loose cans in my car.
Well, I think it matters where it's.
If it's in the trunk, yeah.
If it's in your passenger seat, you
Right.
chance that you.
What I'm getting at is, like, if it's in a cooler in the trunk, that's different than having it, next to you on the floorboard. But as far as the official state citation on that, I'd have to get back to you on that part. I apologize.
It's gotta be open.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah, it
I
is.
drive with a can of beer between my legs if it's not.
That's different than if it's in a cooler, you know, if you're coming home from the beach.
Sure, until it's open.
Yeah, we
Just
go
double check
check.
that
I will,
for me, please.
and how? Yeah, I'd be glad to get back to you on
Curious
that.
on that. And then that was it for you.
Before you get away, though, you mentioned in a sealed bag. Is that how they do? I've never done
They pour the
BYO.
wine and then they do a bag and they seal it.
Yeah, it's
Don't
tamper-proof
spray
bag.
it.
It shows that it's been sealed by the business.
And the receipt has to be inside the bag seal.
Problem is not everyone does that.
Right.
There's like
They
bonfire.
hit the cork in there and they say that's.
Right.
Bonfire.
I think that was changed back in like '06, roughly, that law for the wine.
There's actually a state law about how you seal.
How to package it. Like I said,
We could just
'06
adopt that.
thereabouts, I think is when that
This
came
way
out.
they can't come back after the car that they took it from.
Exactly.
Put it in a tamper-proof, it's like a plastic bag, and if you tear it open, it's just torn open, you can't.
Yeah.
Let me add that was not in this town, but I saw that was not.
Right, so this is sort of how some of the stuff came about with Jeannie and I, because I became aware, and she and I have been talking about it for a year and a half, that there are several businesses that are doing things that we don't necessarily permit, and that's kind of where this came from. Now, in addition to smoking lounge, BYOB, there are hair salons that are serving alcohol to their customers, and there's also businesses that do networking events where they invite people, and a few times I've reached out to them on Facebook and said, you can't advertise free drinks at your event and stuff like that. So that's kind of how that stuff came to be.
Well, you can't advertise free drinks legally.
Right.
Anyways, even if you have a license.
Right, so they work.
Christina, to answer your question, it is, as long as it is in the original container and the seal is unbroken, you can.
Original container, though.
The can
itself?
The can itself.
Okay.
But if they saw 6 cans gone, and you're the only one there, those 6 cans are in you. That gives them an opportunity.
Right.
There's a difference between illegal transportation of alcohol and DUI.
Well, the only reason why I asked is because, I mean, do you have something to say? It's because there's been situations where I've heard of people getting in trouble for having like a 6-pack of beer, you know, and it's in the backseat of the car and there's only 3 in there. You know, that's why I'm just trying to clarify, just to make sure.
A lot of it comes down to the totality of the circumstances that's
Right.
prevented. You know, if it's a reckless driving call, if we're called, somebody's following somebody all over the road. And then, like I said, if the locale, like you said, if it's sitting there between our legs or it's an easy reach, that raises suspicion on our part. But if it's in the backseat or the trunk of a car, harder to get to.
Got it. Okay, I just wanted to share.
Oh, yeah, not a problem.
Can I get one clarification?
Sure.
Go ahead,
So
sorry.
I just have a couple more.
Go ahead, sorry.
So regarding the BYO, now if you have a license, I'm just going to go back to Konos. So Konos has a liquor license where they can sell the alcohol on site, not packaged, but for people to consume. Can a license be combined where people can bring their own or we can sell it? Can it be like combined licenses? So like if we have a license, right? Now can I have, would this license include like a BYOB or BYO?
I had heard one thing on this one. The people that had the liquor license didn't want people to bring their own booze in because if someone went out and got in a bad accident, who serves?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's a state law. So, right, Eric?
I'm not sure. It's something I'd have to look into deeper, but I do know that you can, there are, I don't want to say exemptions, but there are provisions that allow you to bring in, some places will allow you to bring in liquor of your own, but they will charge you a corking fee. And the reason for that is so that way they can control, so their Bassett insurance doesn't get out of hand. They can control how much is being distributed, like, so that way it isn't, go ahead and bring in these 5, you two bring in your 5 bottles of wine, and you guys go to town. The corking fee is there, so they're the ones who are actually opening it and serving it, but it is your own wine that you're bringing in.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with either of these two because of the fact that they have to carry their own insurance and their training and their resealing of it, but I am curious who enforces it then? Is it a code enforcement or is it legal enforcement? Because I've read in the newspaper of a nail salon that they weren't serving it, but they brought it in and they were minors and they overserved these kids and it turned into a big deal. So who's monitoring this? Or who's enforcing it then?
When I went to the seminar at the end of July with the Illinois Liquor Commission, that was when we learned that the burden is on us to enforce the Bassett certification through the business owners. And that was why we discussed restricting spirits, only allowing beer and wine with only so many servings, and then requiring that they list us as additional insured so that if something did happen, then the burden would be on the business.
No, I understand the Bassett portion of it, but I'm saying who's monitoring when they actually go in there and physically do this, that then turns to the business owner.
The village will still be enforcing it just like you do all the other liquor licenses, because obviously, in order to, if they're not in compliance with what they're supposed to do, the mayor has the opportunity to say, I'm revoking your liquor license. So even though it's not this is a BYOB license, but it's still a liquor license that this board and the mayor would have the ability to say, we're taking that back because you haven't followed the rules.
But it's on the word of the patron who may have to report it because it's after hours.
Correct, and it's going to be a situation, in terms of enforcement, it's just like, I mean, you may have a situation where, I don't know if you guys have done this, where if you're sting operations with the sheriff's department, where they're going in with underage people to see if they can buy beer or whether they're asked for ID or those kinds of things. Those are the ways you enforce it, just to make sure that it's doing, but the responsibility would be the villages.
So I just have one more question too. So if there was a BYO place, can I just put my 6-pack in front of me and just keep going? Or does the person that's there have to serve it to me? Because I'm not, I'm Bassett certified, but I'm saying like Brian, I don't know if they're Bassett certified, but can Brian just go into a place and just start consuming his own as much as he brings?
Right, can the mom go in with their 3 bottles of champagne to get the nails done as they're all getting their nails done, and then the mom opens the champagne and pours it for everyone? Is that Is that acceptable? Like I've seen it at bridal shops and,
Depends on the age.
no, I know, I mean,
Right,
I'm
but-
assuming everybody's over 21, right? We'll make that automatic assumption, but how does that then?
They're like essentially their own bartender, or do they need to have someone serving it for them? Does
My
it stand-
understanding is that, you know, all the owners and managers, employees engaged in handling the alcohol have to be trained, and they really are the ones that are serving it. So they'll take the bottle of wine from you, and they'll uncork it, and they'll bring the glasses, and they'll serve it to you.
Okay, so you can bring your own, you just, the establishment has to
Exactly.
serve it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we mandate that?
Yeah.
So we can mandate
Yeah,
that?
put whatever language you want to.
Not just the resealing, but also, I don't know what the verbiage is on the front end of it, the serving or the uncorking.
Unpackaging or uncorking.
Yeah.
Right, you can limit it to whatever language you want. You can say no more than 2 glasses of wine or beer per person. And then the burden is then on the owner to adhere to that restriction. And if they don't, then legally they'd be liable under the Bassett laws and the insurance laws because they have to protect costs. It's up to you as a board, how restrictive you want to be.
So a much lighter subject, so BYO, I like the entire explanation of the BYO. The only thing I don't see here, maybe it's not for this, can they advertise BYO with signage? You say they can't advertise as a drinking establishment, but can they put a sign in their window that says, we allow BYO? And is that a signage question?
I was going to have a similar question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Eric, would you know?
Which question? I mean, in terms of whether.
So,
So,
I can use a real live example if you'd like. Sure. Okay. A Bible Cigar Lounge, they have lockers, you can go there, you can have it corked, you can enjoy your drink. When they first started that, they did put a sign in their window, which I had no offense to, but I know it became an issue, that they were allowing BYO, I believe. And that was a no-no. So do we have to have a sign ordinance for that, or is that part of the licensing piece?
I think as part of your licensing, that would be one of the restrictions.
I mean, obviously, they would have to go within our sign ordinance.
Well, but I mean, even as a restriction, you can put in there that as part of your license, you cannot hold yourself out and advertise BYOB, or that this is a place where you can come and drink, or however you want to do it. We could restrict that.
Or could we make it so that maybe they can put a 16 by 21 sign by the door, or BYO friendly or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Or certified, or, you know, just so you know, it's not from the street side that you see that, but if I'm going in there today and I say, oh, I didn't realize you guys were this way, the next time I come in, then, you know, I know that that availability is there.
That might actually be a good way to control who actually comes and does these, because, you know, we could have our own sign where it says this
Yeah.
establishment has been insured, trained in blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's a small thing that goes on the window or something like that, and it would be a way for us to be able to monitor who has it and who doesn't, so that people who walk in there, if they go into an establishment that hasn't proven to be insured and trained, and, you know, I keep saying a nail salon just because it's in the news lately. I go in there and I see people drinking, and I don't see that sticker on the door, then I'm going to say, okay, there's a problem here. They haven't gone through the proper process. You know, just because it's a nail salon doesn't mean that all nail salons are now BYO. They need to make sure they go through the process. So that might be a good way for us to monitor and see.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
It is, because people change too.
Yeah.
Health changes, and you go in today and everyone's certified, so the next week nobody's certified.
Ownership.
But then again, it goes back to what I said before. There's a lot of policing we would have to do to make sure that this is working out towards not going to come back and bite us.
So, yeah, and there's a lot of policing, and kind of getting onto Christina's question earlier about, you know, if you have an existing license, can I get BYO? And you know, Mayor, you had said that a lot of places say, we don't want you to do that, we're here to sell alcohol.
Correct.
But if I'm an establishment that already has a full-on kitchen, I've got a lot of invested in hardware, right? And I've also probably got gaming if I've got liquor. So if I can get the BYO, I don't care what you bring in with you, I'd rather have you at the gaming, because a third of that goes right to my bottom line. So I'm more profitable probably on the gaming than if you bring in your own six-pack and sit there and play gaming, you know. So to me, it would be that we should restrict BYO in those types of environments where gaming is, at least.
Well, I think
Yeah,
that
it's
would have to do
prohibited. It's BYO would be, it's specified that it's prohibited.
It says that the state does not have regulations.
But under her proposal, it says, it specifies that video gaming on the premises is prohibited.
That means you can't get video gaming with a BYO.
If you were at a nail salon that has BYO, you couldn't get gaming. But if I was Purple Onion and I already have all those other boxes ticked, and it's like, wow, if I just get BYO.
Oh, yeah, I read that differently.
What I would,
Yeah,
what
I
I
think
would
this is
suggest, oh, sorry. What I would suggest is you restrict it to perhaps a bottle of wine, one bottle of wine per customer, because there are people who are wine connoisseurs, and if they go to a nice restaurant like Bonfire, they might want to have a nice upscale bottle of wine, and that's when you would charge their corporate fee. But I wouldn't allow anybody to bring in beer, that's a large profit margin for the restaurant owner, they're not going to want that.
Well, not necessarily, because the reason I ask is because there's establishments that are wedding venues, and a lot of customers ask, can I bring my own alcohol? So, like, for instance, almost,
Right.
Rise will say, to cheapen my bill, can I bring in my own alcohol? And I mean, you know, I mean, I could sell the wedding,
Right.
you know, and let them bring their own booze. I still make profit, but it's, you know.
I think where the
You know what I'm
state,
saying? Like, I'm trying to avoid a loophole.
Does this get sideways of the dram laws, Eric?
That's why I asked.
You start circumventing the dram
Because
revenues.
from what I understood is if you have a full liquor license, you cannot allow people to come in and put their own alcohol.
that's actually, it's a policy decision for the liquor license holder. A restaurant can say, yes, you can, BYO, and this is our corkage fee.
Okay, because,
And then another restaurant could say, we don't allow BYO, I'm sorry. They have, because the state doesn't regulate BYO, it really, that's why we want to try to set up our own parameters for how it can happen. But it really depends on the business, and it's their own policy as a liquor license holder, whether it makes sense for their business to allow BYO. And we're just saying, okay, if BYO is going on, this is how we want it to go on. And then you should have a license for BYO from us.
And then you also don't know when it comes to BYOB. I bring in a bottle of vodka, I start filling up everyone else's glass. And Keith here.
but they're saying it has to be controlled by the vendor or whoever.
But, all right, but if you're, let's say you're one of our, we have 3 right up on Bell Road. If they're busy trying to watch everyone coming in with a bottle, they're not watching their own business. So sale-wise, I would think if I owned the place that had the liquor license and it was my restaurant, I'd do exactly what Keith said. Well, except for letting them bring a 6-pack in and sit by the machine. I wouldn't let them take a chance because this, at the end of the day, it falls on you.
I don't know, because I'm telling for the Konos, when we get checked by the liquor commissioner, he has told us multiple times that people cannot bring in their own alcohol. I mean, maybe he's mistaken, but he's the liquor commissioner, so I'm not sure.
Well,
I mean, he's
with
literally.
being the liquor commissioner, I would say that if you let them bring it in, you'll hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Well, not
think it's an
necessarily,
owner's-
because I still charge the same price. You can bring your own, but you've already paid for what's on site. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still paying this price, but if you want to bring your own, like, for example, we sell Jack Daniels, but someone may want Crown Royal. So you're still paying for the Jack Daniels. If you want to bring in Crown Royal, that's up to you.
Because the drinks are already included in the package.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know, this to me is kind of gets, again, I feel there's a hell of a lot of policing that has to be done.
Because here's another question too, because now, say if the liquor commissioner comes out for a pop-up visit, and I have Crown Royal on my shelf that someone brought in and I'm serving, now the liquor commissioner looks at my purchase order and says, I don't see any Crown Royal on here, how'd you get that? You know? Because legally, we can't go to Kenwood or some other stuff, we have to get it from the.
Correct.
Well,
because it's got the stamps on it.
We
Right,
can't.
so if he pulls a bottle and says, even if it's a Miller Lite bottle or whatever it is, they bring in cans, we sell bottles. You got a can, where'd this come from? You know what I mean?
So for all these reasons, aren't we better off just keeping these distinct?
Yeah.
Right? Just keep BYO, and keep existing, and not have the potential for that crossover.
Yeah, if they want to go into the smoking lounge, you make it a BYO, because now this guy's not responsible for it either, because it's not him, he's not serving it, it's not his alcohol. But if you've got all that, because in a situation like that, that's your livelihood. And one idiot could come in and screw it all
Well,
up.
that's why I'm trying to just say, because if that was the case, I'd be coming come to you guys tomorrow saying, hey, I want a BYO too, you know, like, just for establishment, like, homes.
Well, I understand your point on that. If they've already paid for the booze in the package,
Right.
you want to bring in more, it's more profit for
Right.
me because you already paid for it. I understand that. This is my own personal one. I don't want to be responsible for other people.
But if a restaurateur, full kitchen, wants to allow a BYO, it's their prerogative. They're taking money out of their own till, in my opinion.
I would agree, but I'm just saying from my own perspective is that I wouldn't want it to be me. If they want to do it, and you're willing to pay the consequences, no
When I come
problem.
around,
Usually enforcement even more cumbersome than we're right talking.
Right.
There's usually two ends of the pool, the shallow end and the deep end. Why don't we get in on the shallow end
Yeah.
instead of jumping on the deep end?
Yeah, I agree with what Brian said in this. If we got a BYOB classification for something that does not serve liquor, not a problem. But if it serves liquor already, I wouldn't go there.
So no double license holding.
No, I would say no. But
Not yet.
Not
Not yet anyhow.
Yeah, these guys should vote.
I got my water wings on in the show,
Yeah,
but.
not yet anyhow, but I have a couple other questions too. I know that was just basically about that kind of generic BYO. When you say like classes and things like that, proposed exclusion, I think it said something about craft nights, things like that for BYOs, sipping paint or whatever it was, paint and sip. Are those going to be specifically delineated, certain things? I mean, what if there was a local realtor was putting on real estate classes?
That would be the specialty license then.
Right. Well, it depends on what it is. It could be a special event. If it's going to be a regular thing, then it may be the category that's going to make sense is going to be the specialty business.
Right, we have a funeral home in Orland Park that has every month or two, like ladies' nights out where they have craft shows and vendors and they offer alcohol. So that would be.
Yeah, it's in every kind of business you can think of. It's amazing.
It's evolving.
It's out there.
So then, and
Going over this and just looking at it, I mean, I understand there's some things that are very good in here, that help bring some people in here, get some business to where they can make some more money on it. But I mean, geez, do we want to open up 50 different doors tonight? Because that's what we're doing right now. If like Brian, you said, let's start with the shell. Let's start with the shell side. Let's look into some of these and get something going and see how it works. We can always tweak it at that point and make this to where it does work, or we know this is something we don't want.
so you want to restrict it to like one or two different types of business, like a nail salon or a spa or a painting class? I don't know what other funeral homes.
Because there too, honestly, there's no benefit to the village because you're letting them do the alcohol at the nail salon. There's no profit for the village whatsoever, but there's work for us to make sure that we maintain that everything's going along with it. So certain things, it could be cost prohibitive. So if we want to give it a shot at one place and see what it is and put it on a moratorium after that for a little bit, just to get there.
I think that to answer your question, Keith, I don't know if you're looking at, on this one, on page 8, it talks about, gets into more of some of the descriptions. This is a copy of the memo, the sub
J1? Page 8 of J1?
Yep. Where it talks about, and it gives some examples, beauty salon, spa, paint and sip studio, other retail stores, structured activities, cooking classes, craft classes, other instructional activity. You're right. Could you get into a situation where somebody's gonna take this to the edge and try to figure out a way to game the system, if you will, and hey, we're gonna do an instruction on this. Come on and bring your booze. Are you really gonna run into those situations? I don't think you're gonna have a situation where you guys want to avoid taverns. This isn't gonna lead to that. This is still, again, people are bringing their own booze, whether it's wine or beer, to some sort of event.
Go to your neighbor's house, you always bring booze with you.
Right.
You're a good guest.
But how do you restrict it to?
I was gonna invite you over next time.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's when it becomes policing.
Yeah, you can't restrict it, really. I mean, you could have a dog grooming shop and you allow people to bring in booze while they're getting their dog groomed.
Yeah, but you have to maintain
But,
the insurance.
but again, so
Yeah,
yeah, you gotta
and
get the
are they
insurance.
really gonna go out of the way?
There is
to
going to
pay
be a cost on
insurance
that
and-
business,
Yeah.
right? A prohibitive cost to.
Insurance, the license fee, all those things that come along with it.
And we had Mr. Beefin here a year or more ago who said, who actually, I think he downgraded his liquor license at the time, because he did the math, he did the inventory, so why am I paying for this? I'm never selling that. You know, that's just wasted money. I can go down to the next level up and never really affect my business and put a few more dollars in my pocket. So, I mean, businessmen at the end of the day are always going to look at it that way. Does this make sense? Or is it just wasted money?
Well, I mean, I'd like to go through a couple of them, just because like, I see retirement facility. I mean, if they want to drink, let them drink.
So do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, we
That's
don't
the
have
next-
BYO.
Oh,
No, I'm not on the smoking lounge portion of it, because I think.
well, I was just saying, I wanted to keep going.
Right.
On the smoking lounge portion of it, I have a problem with the distilled spirits. I'm sorry.
Were we done with BYO?
Well, that's part of BYO.
Well, that's,
Oh, I thought you said you wanted to do that
Well,
one
I kind of
separate.
broke these in two, so.
Yeah, go ahead. Keith, you,
Oh.
yeah, it is part of the, it's its own unique class of
No, I
BYO.
was saying, did we answer the BYO, because I know you said you wanted to separate that from the smoking lounge
Well, they're
earlier.
both BYO, but she's saying that's separate classification for a smoking lounge versus a generic BYO.
Right,
Right.
right.
but you're saying.
So, but you
But
have some-
overall, the BYO, the smoking lounge portion of it, I don't understand why we would have distilled spirits there. The two main differences between that one is the distilled spirits and the storage on the site. And what's the rationale behind those? Because to me, distilled spirits is like, do I have to bring in, I love,
Oh, watch
I
it.
enjoy vodka, but I don't drink it straight, not always. So am I bringing in something that mixes into? Am I bringing in a glass and ice and all? I mean, once you get into things like that, you're now into, paraphernalia that goes along with that type of drinking. That's the way I drink, and I don't drink beer, and I like wine, but if I was going to drink wine, no big deal. It's a bottle, and I uncork it, or somebody does, and drink it. Like, distilled spirits is something you're making, you're blending up drinks. I'm making Manhattans in the corner.
But that could be beneficial to the owner of the business, because he can supply the glass, he can supply the tonic, he can supply the orange juice, he can supply all the rest of it, charge you for it.
Right.
You're just bringing the alcohol in for it, because most smoking lounges, I don't like going in because it all this choke, is they want, most of the time, someone's drinking whiskey. They've got a glass of whiskey with some ice in it, and they're content. So if you did it in a situation like that, where you don't have to bring it, you're bringing in your alcohol, and from there, they're supplying everything else, and they're charging you for it.
I think it's more of a because they have the storage lockers, people use that as sort of their hideaway place to go. They smoke a cigar, have a glass of scotch, whatever it might be, just like a golf club.
No, I get it. I mean, it's
That's why I'm telling you, see it in there.
reasoning.
Or they're not taking a bottle with them.
No, they're leaving it. Usually they leave it on premise and they cork it when they
And they got
That's why the
lock
storage
lockers.
is permitted, because
Right.
they have those lockers and they'll stick that bottle for.
Otherwise, you run into that issue about now the seal is broken, and unless you're planning on drinking that entire bottle, you can't bring it in.
And I think there's a huge difference if you have spirits, maybe not, spirits corked in the car versus wine.
If
Yeah.
it's in the
Yeah.
trunk, it's
No,
fine.
because it's not a seasonal business,
Yeah.
I think the smoking lounge is typically when they have the lockers and it's almost like a membership-based thing to have access to that locker. And I think it is kind of a use thing that the two and two just seem to go a little bit more together for that reason.
I like
smoking.
It's like,
Yeah, I've been in
I've
Havana
had
once.
both of them.
Yeah.
I've been in Havana once in the smoking area, and I know that I don't know, if I walked into Habano, I don't have a membership there. Can I buy a cigar out front
Yeah.
and smoke it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I walk in with a bottle of wine, buy a cigar, and go back there and drink that in? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because now you're getting into, because I don't have a locker, now somebody there is still gonna have to record that for me, is that
Yeah.
part of this?
Yeah, it would have to be recorded for them to cover.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
For you to have the use of a locker, that's another.
You're like a member now, right?
Whatever you want to
Membership or whatever.
What they're gonna charge you for.
Subscription.
It's how I think that typically is, but yeah, you know, it's not a, you know, you come in off the street and they just, you know, give you a locker and that's yours. There's another, typically another level to that.
Right, so that came about because we know that it is being consumed. So part of the rationale behind regulating it was to also protect us by requiring the insurance and the owners to be passage.
I'm okay with it.
All right, so you want to talk about the seniors?
Well, I think there was one.
I think there's,
before.
electric liquor service.
Yeah, can I just ask the board, because it's already 9 o'clock and we're probably not halfway through all of this. Willing to go as long as you want to, but if you want to break at a certain point and continue another night, just for keeping fresh on it, I just wanted to put it out there.
Couple go, because these probably were the more time intensive ones. Let's see how the next few go.
See how the next few go? Okay. All right.
All right, so you're going to go with the delivery?
Yeah, we're just going to go in order here. So this is one that, you know, of course, it's out there. You can actually, with your food order from Jewel, have your alcohol included in your package that is delivered to you. It's happening with Meyer. It's happening with, you know, of course, this is the Amazon effect. So it's very widespread now. It's actually something that I believe when Ann and Gina went to the seminar last year, found out that the state is starting to pay attention to this, and they're going to start drafting some regulations about it. But we don't have a timetable on it. So really the question to the board is, do you want to wrap your arms around this right now, or you want to wait for the state to do something? And I don't know, Eric, do you have any comment about that?
No, I think they're also looking at, I think the IML is going to look at maybe doing some draft local regulations that would come out. So if you guys decided you wanted to do something locally, they would have some drafts that are coming out. I haven't seen those yet either, though.
Do you have any idea about timing?
No idea.
All of the surrounding communities that we reached out to see what they were looking at, they said they were waiting for somebody else to do it first so that they could copy their record.
I would wait till the state comes out with some legislation saying how it can and can't work. Because here's the other thing. Little Jimmy's sitting in the back room having his older brother come in and order the stuff for him. Who's gets dropped off and who's checking the IDs, who's making sure that that's what it's taking, because you just dropped off.
That's in the language that it states that you do have to verify the ID upon delivery, and you can't just set payment at the door, you have to pay for it online, but I still think that's such a great, scary area. I don't personally.
It is a pretty, there's a lot of pizza places in neighboring communities that will pick up alcohol for you.
On the way, yeah, but they don't tell you, they don't advertise the service.
Right.
Right.
It wouldn't have fallen on the store anyways, not us.
Yeah, but still.
Well, prove that they brought it over,
Well,
because you never.
what is the difference between that? Like, I can go on Instacart and order from Vinnie's and have Vinnie's deliver alcohol to my house.
Vinnie's would have to get a license.
I can go on wine.com and order wine delivered to my house.
Right.
And so when they deliver it, like when I have it delivered to the office or something, if I'm there, they have to make sure that they're delivering it to somebody that's over 21.
Right, and then that would require then Vinnie's to then get a local license as well.
Yeah, I really don't have an issue with that if there's someone that's kind of stuck in a house and someone's they're gonna check the IDs. I don't really have an issue with it, but it is, again, something that's opening up a can of worms, you don't know what's gonna happen.
And I think that it's something also that I saw recently that Kenwood was doing a survey, like, would you utilize this? You know, why can Vinnie's do it, but Kenwood can't? You know, they could be losing out on a lot of revenue. They could be delivering to senior homes.
Can you remind me, do you think this is occurring right now?
Oh, yeah, it is.
In
Absolutely.
Homer?
Oh, yeah.
It is. I can sit on my computer at home and I can order from Vinnie's.
Yeah, so then I guess the point is,
It is.
yeah, the point is you know, I get it, let's wait for the state, but at some point, it's occurring now, do we want to just keep looking the other way? And that's the state waiting until somebody else is the first one through the wall, or the state does something, or do we want to attempt to regulate it?
If we could regulate it to where no matter what, we're covered, doesn't matter.
Like we could say, it's limited to liquor stores, like the Kenwood, or, so that all of a sudden, the new pizza, Uno whatever comes in, that you can't order pizza in a six-pack of beer.
Well, that's,
You know, it could be something, I'm just saying that's just an idea.
Right.
Fifth
You
of
can
Wild
limit
Turkey
it
from
to-
Circle K.
You could limit it to
We're
a
gonna Fifth of
D
Wild Turkey from Circle K that has the Class D license.
license. You could limit it to a D license.
Well, one's out right now.
Eric, is there any hazard to the village by not addressing this right now and waiting for something from IML or the state or whatever?
There's no liability from that perspective. I think it's just a matter of policy.
It's just a policy, so, I mean, since others are looking into this, maybe, you know, we've got enough fish to fry here, maybe just let this one lie.
Let someone else pay their attorneys to do it, and then you can go.
I do think that you're gonna see Kenwood say, hey, I want to start offering this because the Vinnies and the other ones are, so maybe my recommendation would be to say only the people that hold that specific license are allowed to do this, so that we don't have the pizza stores and the Chinese food places.
But why can't Kenwood do it right now?
And they can.
They probably can do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, so they're allowed right now, and we're not liable.
That's why the state and the IML are beginning to look at it, because it's like, whoa, this is way out there now, so.
Right, it's like a domestic hotel.
But you
So
said it
we're just
perfect.
skipping that one.
They probably are right now, so that's not a bad reason just to leave it alone.
Yeah, because it's on them.
Right. Exactly. It's not us saying, yeah, go ahead and do it. And so little Johnny was 9 years old when we were here.
So we're gonna wait for state to IML guidance.
Well, if they set the guidance or if they set the rules, yeah, then we can follow them and then we're covered. And the way it is right now, if they did it.
But right now, our businesses are not at a competitive disadvantage because Orland Park allows it, and so that's.
Jewel does it, Myers does it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fine.
So, okay.
Yeah, you're right, there's no competitive disadvantage.
Next.
Next.
Is that, speaking of grocery stores,
Okay, let's talk about grocery sit shop. So we would like another upscale grocery store to come to Homer Glen, wouldn't we? I think we have the opportunity on the 159th Street corridor. If you look at our current retail node, and you look at, you know, the 50-yard line on 159th Street, that's already 4 miles away, driving to actually get to it. I think the traffic volume and from the new road improvements and the future development that will happen out there will eventually allow us to be in the realm of being able to attract a new grocer. That's I think, a fair analysis of it. And so,
So
why not?
you're talking about another grocery store coming in?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, but, you know, there are, okay, so there's the grocery store models out there right now, Marion, is, you know, you can go and purchase a glass of wine and take your shopping cart, and within the realm of the store, retail floor, you can have your glass of wine as you shop. So that's what this is all about. We don't actually right now have anybody asking us for this. Meyer hasn't asked for it, Jewel hasn't asked for it, I don't expect Aldi would, but that's not really their model, but it's just asking the question. So we could create this, we could decide not at this time, but if we had the opportunity, we could consider it at that time. Since we're doing a comprehensive update, it was another thing that we could take a look at.
So for me on this one, it goes back to is there a reason not to be proactive, to give the tools to go and recruit? Is there a reason to wait and have someone approach us and we say, well, yeah, I mean, we're open to it, but we don't have that classification? Or is this a way to be proactive to help you gain the tools to go approach these people and say, look, here's our classification, and things like this become a little more fast track?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, it's just everywhere, like, you know.
Beer and wine, I believe.
Well, this would be one that I think would be easier for us to, you know, other towns have paid their attorneys and have that. This is an easier one for us to copy and model off of our town, because there's towns doing this.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said, and I don't have a problem with this. The only thing I'd like to know is, like, once you look at some of that model legislation that's out there, how are people handling consumption quantities, you know. I mean, I can't imagine that there are that many people out there who want to hang out at Mariano's for 9 hours drinking. I mean, you know, but, you know, I'm sure that somebody else has already walked down that path too.
You're only allowed 4 laps around.
Now, is this purchase?
I'm thinking of Christina, midnight
Yeah,
and
well,
mid-lighter, you know.
yeah.
Well, like the vape field trip, I want to do this field trip.
I think it goes back to the training and the over-serving and carrying that, you know, that license that says you're not going to over-serve someone, that type of thing. It goes on to the establishment's responsibility to not over-serve.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to put in there is not knowing, I don't know what Mariano's business model is, I don't know what their hours of operation are, but I know that there are supermarkets out there that are 24 hours. So if we're going to open this door to all, you know, grocery stores, you know, current and future, I think it should be limited hours.
Yes.
It's not going to be on the overnight. So Mariano's model might not have that, or Kroger, or whoever, you know, but some do. And if they were to say, hey, I'd like one of those too, we need to make sure.
You don't want to leave the bar at 2 a.m. and then go to the grocery store.
Close one and go to the grocery store.
All right. What other ones did you want to go over tonight?
Specialty business. Okay, so this would be that kind of catch-all for the other kinds of businesses that aren't handled by another category already. And we mentioned earlier that this could complement business service type businesses. So like your beauty salon, nail salon, your paint and sip studio would fit into this category. Movie theaters would fit into this category. Your specialty retailer, your coffee shop that would like to offer beer or wine, you know, at maybe certain hours of the day on their menus. So this would be limited to beer and wine for consumption on the premises for patrons participating in the services of the business. And it would be strictly an adjunct to the business operation. So it's not just come on in, get a glass of wine and leave. It would be you are coming in for a mani-pedi, or you're participating in a painting class, whatever the service of the business is.
Now, I'm not going to say what nail salon I go to, but if I was to go into a nail salon, I don't purchase it, they just give it. Is that legal? Like, is that something that we're looking to do? Or
They
does
can't
it have to
charge
be
you unless they have a
purchased?
liquor license.
It should be part of a package they're selling to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't just walk into a nail salon?
Yeah, it should not be separate from a service or a package or something that you're purchasing that business offers. It should be part of what's
They have
going
to have a
on.
liquor license to sell you something. If they're giving you something, that's their option. That'd be like you come to my house and I give you a beer.
This would be a license classification, though, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so to Christine's point, if you went in for a mani-pedi and, you know, I've got package 3, does package 3 come with 2 drinks? Or if I get to the end of my second drink, do I go, you know what, I'd really like a third drink, can I purchase the third drink? I mean, really, what some of these get down to, and Mary, you said, do we really want to open 50 doors right now, or do we only want to open a couple doors and see how this goes? To me also, you know, places like, you know, I get mani-pedis and, you know, a lot of these salons and everything, and they're great businesses, they help stabilize our community. But we don't really get tax revenue from them. You know, these are services that are being sold, and we don't get anything. But to the mayor's point, we may be putting out a lot more effort to go and cover them, you know, make sure that these things are being taken care of. So,
But you'll have a lot more revenue from those liquor licenses too.
well, that's a one-time, you know, flat out, but if you were selling drinks, you're you know, suddenly these taxes, right, the salon owner is like catapulted in 10 different types of business that they're trying to, you know, to run here. So I guess I'm kind of like in the middle here. I get it that, you know, you put that out there as a way to entice business to come in. But
Because that's the same thing going back to the wedding business. I don't sell the booze, we include it with the package.
I actually see this more as a retention kind of proactive way of working with businesses where, you know, they just can add value, improve the customer experience, make people feel special, unique, whatever, you know, just how they package their whole deal.
Right.
And this is kind of like an adjunct to all of that.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be, like you said, I want this package and it comes with 2 drinks because, for example, a movie theater, you're still going to be, it's going to have to be in conjunction with whatever service you're there for. But at the same time, you're gonna have to use your basic training and not overserve someone. So if somebody's at a movie theater, maybe somebody wants one glass of wine, why are you gonna limit, you could, hey, we're gonna limit you to 2 drinks. It's a 3-hour movie, maybe somebody wants 3 or 4 drinks, who knows? But I think that's where the basic training and the liability for that licensee is gonna come into play. I don't think you want, as a board, restricted to say, we're gonna allow this, but we're only gonna allow 1 drink with your mani-pedi or 2 drinks with your haircut or whatever it is.
No, I wasn't trying to limit it, I was trying to say, is it a revenue stream for us, basically?
All I guess.
You know, I'd like to know the revenue ramifications for the village versus the offset of what we might have put out there in code enforcement and other items. If it's only, if I go in for my $40 mani-pedi and it has 2 drink options, that's sold as a service and there's no tax. Or is it, man, I go in for a mani-pedi and if I want to buy 2 drinks, then all of a sudden there's taxes being generated and coming a revenue stream into the village. So
I like the second model better.
And again, I have nothing against salons and spas and things like that, having that, you know, at their offering to entice business to come in.
Where do you get a mani-pedi for $40?
Yes,
Yes.
I know this one seems like you're opening yourself up for, somebody piercing that corporate veil with this. You know, this specialty one just seems like another one that maybe we set aside so that we're still in the shallow end.
Right, in terms of your revenue, you've got your annual licenses, but then in terms of code enforcement, we don't really do much code enforcement in terms of our existing licenses as it is. I mean, that falls on, basically the burden falls on the sheriff to do ID checks and stamps and such like that.
Well,
There's a consensus to hold off on this one.
That's just my opinion.
and I agree with her. So
Just until we.
we're going to have a few that are going to be on our plate that I'd like to spend some time looking at to make sure it is good. And it's also going to bring some revenue into the village because this is stuff that we are selling.
Is there one question we maybe can answer, Eric, as to whether or not if there was, I mean, liquor is a retail product that is taxed and you have to then report and all of that. If a service business was licensed to be able to offer that, would they automatically have to then report retail sales tax?
If they're selling it by drink-wise, yes.
I would think so.
Correct, part of their state licensing would require that.
Yeah, I would think that they would have to give their retail sales tax license and all of that would come with this if they had never done it before. If it was not already part of what they were doing, they would have to. So there would be a revenue stream from that.
I think they would be better off sticking with BYOB and not having that.
But for right now, we're going to hold off, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So shall we move on to retirement facility? So actually, we do have Marion Village that is interested in a liquor license to be able to sell beer and wine to their residents in the dining room. How we've seen this constructed elsewhere is you allow it within the confines of the dining room, outdoor patio areas where meals are regularly served for both residents and their guests when they're accompanied, by the residents. The facility could have private functions where beer and wine service is allowed in common areas as part of regular activities that are integral to the facility. Specify this does not involve package sales. You're not permitted to advertise or promote the sale of alcoholic liquor or offer the sale to the public. It's really to residents and their guests. Historically also, just so you know, Marion Village had a liquor license, and I think they let it lapse. So I spoke with the executive director over there just to find out if they're, what their current status is, and they are interested if it would be available. I also spoke with the executive director at Victorian Village, who said that they would be interested as well. They do get requests from residents.
I've got a bunch of residents call me.
Yeah.
And
So.
that's why I'm not giving them a license, and I'm not going to go out and advertise it with your license. But when I did talk to them, they're very blunt when they give you an explanation of what's going on. But they said they would like to have a drink at dinner and maybe a drink after. So I'm with you. With what Christina said earlier, I think that's something that should almost be a no-brainer. It's not like they're little kids, and the home knows who should and who shouldn't drink, you know, because they're also watching what meds are taking to see if it's not going to mix. But to tell someone, you know, we have one guy that Jim knows about, I get a phone call probably every week from him about people shooting. And he goes, you know, some of these people need a drink because of all the gunfire that they've got here. They're all ready to die and they want something. I'm dying in peace. Okay. Oh. So, and this is a residence that are there, so.
I don't have a problem with it.
I absolutely agree.
Okay.
No, I mean, we talked about CED, the potential of the medication. That's on
That's on them.
Totally on them.
Yes.
And
Right.
you have to assume there's a problem.
And that's what the executive director said too, that they, you know, people have to be responsible for themselves. They are living here independently. The assisted living is done differently. They have a different dining area. You know, so this is for the independent owners.
The only
And again, this
restriction, well, the only restriction that I would want on it is there is no package sale. I mean, they are, just make sure that they understand there is no package sale. I'm gonna go to my room and have one more.
No, I saw, I was with you too, I saw that on the.
Yeah, and it is for sale, right? It's for the residents and their guests to buy the meal.
Correct, just like a regular
But
restaurant.
it's a served drink. It's not like they're gonna give a bottle of
Right.
wine and
So
say.
6 to go.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good with this.
Okay, ready to move on? So this is the craft product. So this is actually for the operation that actually manufactures on site. So it could be beer, wine, distilled spirits. There are other applicable federal, state licenses, requirements. I mean, all of that would have to be met first before you would be coming to the local. And the activities that this could include would be retail sale for on-site consumption. You could have package sales, so they're buying package to take away. And you can also, this is where product tasting, the free tasting could happen, and that would make sense in accordance with state standards, because the state sets that up. You could also limit the on-site consumption to the retail portion of the facility during supervised tours and private events. Some communities vary on how they limit on-site consumption in terms of the actual amount that's served. Naperville actually recently relaxed its law on that and took away the serving limits because they saw that the business had more opportunity to expand without that limit there. So that's an individual thing. We can direct the attorney to handle it however you would like. Also, a size limit could be specified for the retail portion. There's just different ways that it can be done. In the staff memo, I think on page 13, it starts and it continues on page, well, it goes for a while here, talking about it on pages 14 and 15, about giving you lots of different examples for breweries, wineries, and distilleries. Plainfield is a good place to go check this out because they have the Tailwinds Distilling Company and a Black Dog Distillery right there. And they also have the Workforce Brewing Company. So you can kind of, if you want to go check out and see how that operates, you could, by visiting one community, you could check out a couple of places.
Keith and I will go on.
Yeah, we're going to do these while George does the...
Go do that,
The retirement.
yeah. And then, you know, I provided a number of code models, you know, from Downers Grove, Makina, Lamont, Naperville. This is really for the benefit of the attorney. You know, we've already kind of looked into some of these codes to see how do they do that, you know, and we're just trying to pick and choose the best for here. But if you want to open up to the opportunity to bring this type of business into town, we could have the attorney draft something, bring it back, and we can take a look at it.
This I agree with wholeheartedly. This again gets back to what we've been talking about all night long, the difference between a bar or a tavern becoming a destination or an experience, and really a craft type place goes beyond that. These things become like halos, you know. I mean, they attract restaurants nearby, they attract adults, entertainment type, not that adult entertainment, you know what I'm talking about. So these can have a halo effect.
You said those too closely.
Yeah, those are my travels down south. So.
Yeah, I have a problem with this one.
Yeah.
I think we actually have a chance to get through this tonight, so if,
So did I get this? So you're good with this?
Gotcha.
okay. Let's move on. So the next one is hotel. It's another kind of unique sort of business. So obviously we've been trying to attract hotel to Homer Glen, and we will continue to do so. I'm going out to Recon in May, and that's one of the target areas that I'm going to revisit definitely while I'm out there. So communities regulating alcoholic liquor in hotels based on the service level. So you have your limited service hotel, you have your full service hotel. They're really kind of different animals. The larger full service hotels are generally over 150 rooms. The limited service generally is about 80 rooms. They typically have a breakfast buffet area. They usually don't have a restaurant or, offer banquet room capability, that sort of thing. At the moment, limited service hotel is the more probable recruitment that we may be able to bring here, unless we have larger things happening where it's going to create that synergy that we could attract the full service type hotel. So, mini bars is about all you have to worry about when it gets to a limited service hotel. And then again, we provided a number of code opportunities where the hotel class is spelled out and how that the attorney can take a look at that and put something together for us. But again, we would specify no video gaming on the premises, and it would proactively address the hotel use in the liquor code, as we're definitely trying to attract that use.
And you anticipate that use just being minibars?
No, well,
Or do you anticipate it? I don't know.
I'm saying at this point, from the feedback that we've received and the level of development and density that we have right now, and we don't have the, we need more corporate office presence here to be able to attract the bigger venue. So limited service, which is the type of, it'll usually have a nice breakfast bar in the morning, and you'll have all your needs met, but it's not going to have a full
It's
restaurant.
primarily the places I stay. And they generally have also a little concierge area too, but they're serving, they might have 5 different types of beer in cans, bottles, you can buy them, you can take them up to the room or drink them in the little lounge area as well. And maybe some small, like individual bottles of wine as well, not full-blown, like 750 mLs. So is that what you're anticipating? Is that what you're envisioning?
That is near term, but I mean, that can change. Okay.
Is that a limited service hotel? Is that
Yes.
That the thing I just described to you, that I've seen in places where I've stayed, they're not big hotels, and they offer those types of alcoholic refreshments. That's what you're envisioning.
Right. I think at the very least we might want to cover that.
Right.
That would be my
And
recommendation.
are we looking at the full service hotel too tonight?
I don't know that we are in the realm of being able to attract full service right now, so I'm not so concerned about covering that right now. If we get that opportunity, boy, I'll be right on that.
Right, we could write something for that one then.
Right.
If there's interest at something.
Yeah, but I would suggest that we take a look at this, as long as we're doing a comprehensive update. If we're going to create more classifications, this would be a good one to
And
create.
you said no video gaming at these limited? Correct. But at a full service, you could envision that?
Well, it would
Because they'll have a
be,
restaurant, they have a bar.
Yeah.
yeah, it
Or
would
a
be,
bigger hotel.
Yeah, Giorgio's Comfort Inn has.
Correct.
All
Yeah.
of that. They built a room for their video games.
Yes. So if we did something like that, yeah, right, we should understand.
I don't have a problem with this one.
No problem.
No.
We have interest from a full-service hotel, we can call a special board meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Moving right along. Okay, so recreation facilities, the next one. Our current code definition of recreational facility, I think, needs to be updated, because right now it pertains to golf course, bowling alley, health club, tennis, racquetball, or handball club or facility. And man, this category is really expanded when you see the different venues out there. So the recommendation is to actually update the definition. And here's one way of doing it. It could include indoor sports facility, indoor simulated golf, arcade, and active family entertainment attractions. And I think I would even recommend renaming the classification from recreational facility to sports/recreational facility to just try to embrace the whole thing. So the common business model out there, it combines active family entertainment activities with food and the availability of alcoholic beverages. Most popular concepts allow that alcohol to travel throughout the facility, so it's not limited to an area where food can be purchased. And you maybe sit down and have some food there, but you can actually walk around with it. Definitely specify that video gaming on the premises is prohibited. The Aurora Code, just for an example, this was different and interesting because it's kind of a unique business model. They require a security plan to be submitted for approval along, it's like, how do you make sure that this is not going to go past the doors and all that, just to make sure it gets controlled. So there's a model that you could, tap into. And the Aurora Code also they offer a limited menu for later evening hours before closing time. So maybe if they've got a full-blown restaurant menu, but they don't make them have that up until the later hours of their operating. So that's another option. And in Downers Grove, they actually have two different, Rec 1 and Rec 2, where one of them allows full alcoholic liquor and the other one just limits it to beer and wine. So there's lots of different models out there. And again, the memo provides a lot of code model options and a whole page of examples of different kinds of recreational facilities. On the digital version, you can open up the websites for these facilities and take a look around if you're not already familiar with them. So it's everything from Top Golf to Urban Air Trampoline Park to Glow Zone to Round Run to Dave & Buster's to Chuck E. Cheese to Gizmo's Fun Factory. I mean, there's just a lot of different examples. Pinstripes. Max McCook is actually a sports center over in McCook, and they have on the second floor they have their concession where you can get the food, and then they have a separate window next to the concession where you can buy the beer and wine, and then they just limit that you're up there on the second floor and with your alcoholic beverage, and you can look over and see what's going on the courts below. It's set up that way, so they're not traveling throughout the facility. I should mention, we have Megaplex right now that has transitioned to new owners, and they're in the process of making renovations, and the Cork and Kerry is in the process of opening there also. It's really two separate businesses there, so the restaurant is a tenant, a subtenant actually, on the property. And in regards to their operation, I mean, they are interested in both a liquor license and a gaming license. And I think the way to handle that one would be that it's not the recreational facility coming in to apply for the liquor license. It would be the restaurant. And they would meet the code requirements of at least 1,500, the full restaurant definition, and all of that. So that would be one way of handling that situation.
So you're still envisioning a full kitchen and food?
Actually, for the recreational facility, sports recreational facility, no. Most of the models out there, I mean, a lot of them have. At Dave & Buster's, you can get a gourmet burger now. But I mean, it's, they offer some really good food these days. Top Golf, I mean, they're talking about really good food that attracts people. But other facilities, no. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese, it's pizzas, and some of this stuff is not necessarily involving the full-blown kitchen with the hood and all of that. Food is available, but it's not.
How about tea time?
Tea time doesn't
Would they qualify? No, would they qualify under this?
Oh, yes, I think so. Yeah.
To give the liquor license?
Under this proposal?
Under this proposal, they are, they're kind of outdoor, aren't they? They're not really.
They do have a building.
They do have a building.
That's exactly what I was getting at, though, because it's outdoor.
Yes, and they have been interested in a liquor license before.
You can easily wander to your car and,
Well, you would have to control, see, you'd have to control where, if it's contained
okay, and again,
inside a building.
we're having a discussion, so, just,
Right.
we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have some establishments that don't rise to the level of
But I-
Topgolf or.
Right,
Correct
exactly.
me if I'm wrong, but I thought the reason he could not, at least is what he explained to me, was because his building is necessarily a trailer, and that did not fall under the code. It's not a permanent structure. I believe that is what the hiccup was with him.
Well, he couldn't, if that was the case, the shed, he could, because the sheds are permanent structures.
But I thought it had to be a certain square footage,
Well, that's for a restaurant, if you're gonna put a restaurant aside, he couldn't do that, because he doesn't have the water,
Right.
so he'd still have some problems on it. And that's for sale right now anyhow, so.
Tea time aside, to me, this is one where personal opinion is what type of experience do you want to attract, right? And when I look at the list and I think of the Topgolf and the Dave & Buster's and the Pinstripes, and these are all places, but they have full kitchens and full restaurants.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus a Chuck E. Cheese, and I don't know about Chuck E. Cheese necessarily, but I've been in others where it's essentially a concession stand with like some warmers.
Right.
They'll heat up a pizza type of thing and put it on a spin and put it under a hot pan.
Yep.
And where the Topgolf and the, as I said, the Dave & Buster's and the Pinstripes, I think are the things that
No,
I want to
I
attract.
fully agree with the intent. I'm just saying that we also have to be cognizant that we have a few other things, I'm not saying that it has to have a full kitchen complement. I think those places do well when they do that because they broaden, what they can offer. I mean, I've been to those types of places and Accelerate over here in Pima, Lennox, I can't remember. I mean, that place is doing, great business and everything. So I appreciate the intent of this. I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, no, I think I'm saying kind of the opposite. That I like having a full kitchen. I like that versus, and I've been in these in other towns, versus kind of the not arcade, but the Chuck E. Cheese type of place. It's in a strip mall and has the concession stand versus the Dave & Buster's or the Topgolf or the. To me, there is what do you want to attract.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
But the place like Tea Time can get BYO or what? Beer and wine?
You probably could do a BYO there, but the same thing that we're doing with everybody else. If they want to bring it, they bring it. That way it doesn't go.
Because that's an experience.
I like the idea of having a full kitchen because, like Brian is saying, that's kind of what you want to attract, just like the Topgolfs and things like that. Because I'm picturing, we went to the auto show, and so I know what you're saying. They have these little things where you can walk up and get the hot dog or get the beer, and that's just something I think you're kind of opening up.
Yeah.
I think it could be something that if it comes up could be addressed, but why have that door wide open right now?
Yeah.
Again,
I agree.
So we could maybe take a look at creating a classification, but it does have that full kitchen restaurant requirement with it, the full restaurant definition with it.
Yeah, I'm thinking, maybe there's other examples I'm not thinking of that wouldn't have the full kitchen that
because these have
beyond
big spaces.
the place I'm talking to where I'm in the strip mall, it's the kids playing with the concession stand. There's a difference between going to something like that and going to a Dave & Buster's.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
$400.
Yeah. Right? But the rides and everything else are the same.
Right.
I
like the revenue space.
But I don't want to, but I may not be thinking of all of the potential uses. I may be missing something, right?
Well, I think if you, again, want to stay in, somewhat shallow end here, this would be a way to frame this and see how it goes. And it certainly, if we could attract any of these kinds of really super top quality operators, boy, I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah.
So.
I thought the language relative to the security is interesting because I've just, again, in the news been hearing just a lot of issues that go on at some of these places, and I can't remember all of their names, but, just Chuck E. Cheese.
Plus, we do
have,
have,
Almost required to have security.
I mean, I would just be curious to what your all's thoughts were on that.
I like the idea of looking at the Aurora code with the security plan.
am in favor of that. They're looking at it at least and having it there and then being more lax.
Yeah,
Because
but
they say, I
I-
can't afford the security for the hours that you want, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'm not sure though, when we talk about in the Aurora code, whether that's a security, like what level of private security company are you gonna have, or whether it's the security of making sure that the rules are followed as it relates to liquor, right?
Right, and I think it's a matter of, here's the facility, and here are like all the openings, and this is where purchase can happen, and this is where circulation can happen, and these are where controls are in place. I think it's more like almost a site plan would be part of it.
And only because we're talking more family-friendly type places,
I think Pat's point is really valid, especially in this day and age, though, that some of these bigger types of developments that we want to attract, you know, from a top golf or something, if you're attracting hundreds of people, again, not necessarily, I don't want to dive into somebody's business and say, you got to have 3 security guards, you know, this many hours and everything, but they should be aware that, you know, you have a responsibility now. By inviting this much of the public here, this isn't, you know, the bank on the corner where there's 10 people in there at max. You're talking about hundreds of people, possibly the concentrations of this. So the security aspect of knowing how are you going to manage this, you know, do you need to bring on security personnel? Certainly should have evacuation plans and things like that for when these things do go sideways. I mean, it happens, you know, and how they, how they, you know, what is their response going to be to that?
but not necessarily part of the liquor code.
No, but you know, again, just in the broader sense, and just speaking about like what Topgolf and Dave and Buster's and the others that are out there that are like that. I mean, we have I'm probably not going to get the name right. The Homer Glen, where the gentleman wants to develop the one on 159th Street, just east of the Waterfall Place. You know, I mean, it's great to want a Topgolf and all those things, but we have something kind of in the hopper. You know, it's not fully baked by any stretch, but you know, let's look at something like that. When you're doing multi-floor, because I believe that is envisioned to be multi-floor, you know, how do we want to address things like that?
Sure.
How do we want to address things even if you had the full kitchen and you had a bar and you're eligible for gaming? Where is the game? Should it be in relation to the kitchen or the bar or something? Could it be 2 floors away? You know, we should, you know, make sure that we're conscious of those types of things as well.
One other thing, not that this will come in our day and age, but I heard that these video gaming facilities, not gambling video gaming, but actual gaming arenas where people challenge each other, in that type of environment, how does that fit in this? So it's a warehouse.
Virtual things,
Yeah, and then people are playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they're spectators. So how do we handle that? Where does that classification fall here? And it's limited food menu, but they may want liquor because could be an adult.
They gotta have a full, what we're saying, they gotta have a full kitchen.
They'd have to have a full kitchen the way that they're looking at it.
I mean, just something to think, not that we're ever looking at something like that.
Yeah, that's a valid.
That's like Hunger Games.
It's one of those that I'm saying we need
It's
to.
a one-off.
Yeah.
They're probably all under 21 anyway, so.
Not necessarily.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Not my age.
This would be probably, this would be where you're looking at, because you'd probably view it as a recreational facility, entertainment facility, whereas they're coming in for that specific.
You're right, the participants may be under 21, but there's going to be people in the crowd who may not be.
I know.
Little Jimmy's been playing games since he was 2, and now he's the best. So,
There's so much Jimmy the other day, where some guy wants to
Jimmy's getting around.
for being the champion person that does it. There'd be 2,000 people in the audience.
Yeah, you know, there's different ways of working with those too. I mean, it's interesting when you look at the concepts out there. There's this urban air adventure park that's in Bloomingdale and Crystal Lake, but it's coming to Naperville and Elgin and Waukegan. And if you visit their website, it's like, oh, there's all kinds of really interesting, cool, you know, like, the net of ropes and the, you know, obstacle challenge kind of course and the climbing walls and, you know, actually really physical active activity. And the way, I mean, I could not ascertain, and I haven't been to one, actually, they have the Urban Cafe there. I didn't get that they necessarily are providing fully cooked kind of meals there. Food's there, but I don't think this may not, I don't know, we'd have to check and see if this would qualify.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and then Yeah, there's the round one, which is in the Fox Valley Mall. Now they have bowling, karaoke, billiards, an arcade. They have beer, wine, mixed drinks. They allow it throughout the facility, except in the karaoke rooms. You can't do it there. And they also, the idea of upon entry. I know Dave & Buster's is really, strict about how they do things. And I read somewhere, one of them, where it's if you're participating in the activities of the facility, you can't drink. They're not going to, if you're drinking, they're not going to let you on the floor with all the stuff, the challenge stuff, because that's just crazy. So, they do self-regulate, they have how they do it. But if you're real serious about some of these other types of concepts, we may have to look more into would they fit restaurants. But I think restaurant's a good way to start.
Yeah, and one more, I'm sorry, I'll leave you guys alone with this. I don't know if you said it when I was gone, but I went to a place this weekend just to pick up kids. Sky Zone in Orland Park, a trampoline park. Did you bring that up?
No, I said it didn't sound good when they played back the video.
Well, I was picking up
place to pick up kids.
Yeah, tons of people. But Sky Zone in Orland Park is a fully trampoline-friendly, crazy environment that's going to be another huge, it was mobbed.
Did they have alcohol
Thousands.
there?
Huh?
Did they have alcohol?
I think,
Because when I went there before, they didn't have
Yeah, I don't think
alcohol.
so. Okay.
It's like, because
I mean, for
that
a kid's
vacation.
and all the adults were there like, okay, now we can't do anything because we're not gonna jump.
If you go to Accelerate,
Yeah,
though, you can drive and drink. I mean, you can have 2 drinks and still race. No more than 2 drinks.
Well, they don't know. They hope.
Yeah, they do.
No, they do your band.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, before you
The
get.
parking lot.
Well, pre-game.
All right, what's next?
Okay. All right, so here comes the...
So where were we at on that? We're doing, and we want to take it with the Aurora one.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to just do it with like the restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so the next question is, since we're doing all this, should the village formalize a policy regarding liquor licenses for gas stations? So our code does not currently specify a policy about this. And so, staff is kind of like in a gray area when we're being approached for, okay, what does Homer Glen allow? And we do, the reason it's a little bit gray is because primarily in the past we've just done a beer and wine package license, but we did issue the license for the gas station up at the southwest corner of 143rd and Bell, the Circle K Shell, and they can sell distilled spirits, and they do confine it behind the counter. The contract buyer of the Boo property is interested in a full liquor license for package sales. So beer, wine, distilled spirits, they would be more than happy to confine the distilled spirits as that classification calls for. And they actually, in the process, that's the next agenda item, showed questions in our code. So we'll get to that. So there is a gas station prospect out there right now, and they haven't applied yet, correct? But they have certainly made their intention known that they would like the full.
Well, we already have one out there, so I don't think there's an issue.
Pardon?
We already have one out there that has it.
Can we do like hours on that though?
That's
Wasn't
what I
there
was
like
gonna do.
specific hours?
I didn't see anything that restricted on Circle K.
I thought we did have a restriction on it.
On the
Well, I think
hours?
liquor sales there are hours specified for liquor sales by the code, but it's not class specific. I think it's overall, right? We do have hours established.
It's like,
1
so
a.m.
1 a.m. during the week and 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturdays, but it tends to be policy driven by the corporate. So like Jewel stops when they close. I think they close earlier than Meyer. Meyer stops at midnight.
So the Circle K cannot sell
Kenwood
liquor
stops at 10.
past
Yeah.
those hours, whatever they
Yeah.
are, 1 a.m., 2 a.m.
Correct.
I mean, there's already one.
Yeah, now, let me just make one point. In CED, which, something that I found interesting is, this was, I think, a bigger topic than I thought it was going to be. And there was, and Jamie or Mayor, there was almost, if not full consensus from the CED members of, yeah, we've got one out there, but don't love the idea of it and may want to rescind that back, which I found interesting in a little bit. But that was,
But why? What was the reason?
Jane, you remember, I think it was mostly kind of,
Perception?
yeah.
Do we know what their sales are on? I mean,
They're what?
do we know what their sales are for,
For the liquor?
yeah,
What do they
liquor
say?
accounts? Like, do we know, how much volume?
I'm sure we
At
can
the
find
Circle
out.
K?
Yeah.
That's a problem. I would imagine that's proprietary information.
I don't think so. I think that-
It might be able
Because
to
of-
report
because
the
of the
back
tax
up their
service.
taxes, right?
Right.
And they would imagine that they're,
One of the things that should be considered is given the location for the Pride, the nearest full liquor store would be in Lockport.
Yeah.
The Jewel, the Walmart, and Burkhardt's and the liquor store. Way down the road would be Kenwood, but the distance would be twice as long.
I don't have a problem with it because we have one here, we've had this discussion in the past. As long as, the Class D with that.
One gas station, one.
Yeah,
convenience.
gas station, yeah.
Yeah, the convenience store was the first one we did.
Right.
I voted for the gas station, I still think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have an argument with it either, for that. And they do have the knowledge that if you're giving them that, they're still not getting the game.
I mean, look, in CED, the counter was, we have it in 2 existing places. Has someone heard complaints?
Right.
Right, so I'm just relaying the conversation that was had, just so everybody knows that conversation was had. But that was one of the counterpoints I made was, yeah, we have to, and I understand that sentiment. And I shared that sentiment when we approved that first one. But we've had them in existence now for multiple years, and anybody.
there's no detriment. So
Yeah, has anybody heard? So let's maybe not look for
do we have any
ways.
signage regulations?
That's what I was thinking.
You know, like
That's what
the
we're talking about.
distributors are giving up the neons and the posters
Yeah.
and the tin signs and everything.
That's my only fear is that all of a sudden, if you go to the one that's on
Right,
Route
it
6
says
and
it
Cedar,
about a few
you
things in
can
NASCAR.
see in those windows, they have
Yeah.
so much liquor signage up on there and all that stuff, and that really is.
That's what starts to make the
They can't
perception
give you-
of this kind of seeding side of it,
I think we do have just a limitation on the amount of the window area that you're allowed to cover. I mean, really technically, you shouldn't cover more than 30% of your window area, and that's something that,
Visibility.
yeah, that needs to be and can be enforced. But I think the content is something that,
So that would be,
Yeah.
and that's the way I understand it, but I guess my question would be, how can we restrict it on BYO? How can we restrict content on advertising on BYO, but not on anything else? Right, we're saying,
You're not holding yourself out there as a drinking establishment.
Right.
yeah, but we can't do that for gaming or others other than the percentage of the, from the building.
I think that's more of a legal question, right?
Yeah, it is.
So rephrase it if you don't mind.
So what I'm saying is, we're saying that, for example, the Class D at a gas station, we don't want them advertising that they have bottled liquor, in their windows. Maybe you don't want them advertising gaming in the front windows. And we've always said you can't dictate content, you can only dictate, our ordinances only allow a certain portion of the windows. When it goes to the BYO, we had in here,
That's a suggestion that we referred to?
no, the business would not be advertised or otherwise held out to be a drinking establishment.
But Beth said we would provide them with a signage.
It's more like a
Or door sign.
Yeah, like a liquor stamp or something over the door, and it could say something like, we're BYO friendly. That's the way to regulate.
Well, we're saying BYO, if you're a nail salon, you cannot put a sign in your window that says you allow BYO, right? That's what we're saying in that, or am I reading that wrong?
Other than the one that, Beth.
Correct. Is there a legitimate governmental purpose for doing that? And I'm not saying at this point we would or would not have that, but
Yeah.
the fact that it's a BYO, that this is not supposed to be a drinking establishment, to try to limit that message probably would pass muster.
Can we govern it by a security perspective? Bad security covering up all your windows?
Well,
Well, that's what that is.
30%, yeah.
Correct. That's to be able to, so that anybody could be able to take a look in there and make sure that
That
they're
everyone's
in
okay.
compliance with everything that they need to be doing.
Now, is BYO for special events only, or is it any time?
No, if you had a BYO license, it could be for any time you're serving customers.
And I think part of it is because you're giving that license though too, there's also, it gets into those, it's not clear cut first of all, right, in terms of what you're looking at, but the fact that you're giving them a license and you're putting some restrictions on that license, that's a little bit different than simply just saying, Jim, blanket, you can't advertise BYOB in our city.
Sure. So flip it, on Class D, could we say that you could we restrict it that way?
I think you might be able to, in terms of restricting, we don't want to see a lot of distilled spirits advertising or things like that.
And
I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's what we're asking, right? If there's a way to restrict that content on the gas station, right? That's the question. Or I would say the same thing as it would relate to gaming, right? A pet peeve of mine has become that you have restaurants that are, their main business is food, but when you drive by, the entire front window is gaming and nothing about the food that's their main business. Well, we can't restrict content, right? That's been the answer. As opposed to, what's your specials of the week, or pushing your main product instead of everything gaming.
I'm sorry, can I bring up one point, because you just made me think of something else, going back to BYO. When we do these, are we going to restrict the time for, so a cigar lounge, what if they say we want to be open 24 hours now, and they serve BYO past 2 o'clock in the morning?
no, you're going to have limits on your B1.
Okay, on all licenses, there should be a time frame.
They would have to get a special permit anyhow to go 24 hours.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I know we're
So we could address that.
Yeah, and mine's a different topic, but it's just one of those that, as we're talking about regulating some content or ability to advertise, but then saying we can't do it here.
The key to, just to give you a First Amendment 101 too, is the idea, it isn't this blanket, you cannot restrict any content. The key is, you can restrict content, but only if you have a very good governmental reason to do so. It's got to be a very good reason. And then, like I said, it's a balancing test. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Is the BYOB, is that something that you'd be able to restrict? Like, why are you wanting to do that? The distilled spirits, is it to prevent clutter? Is it we don't want to send a bad message? Again, it's a balancing test to say, like, how much content can we restrict based on what's that overriding governmental interest?
So we're not sure whether we could, as it relates to the BYO, and keep that language.
Correct.
Okay.
That's something we have to take a look at.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent question. I mean, it's a good long swallow.
So we're all in agreement for the gas station, we're fine with Class D regulations.
I'm fine.
As long as it's, right, it's hours restricted, like we said, and it is sequestered from, it's not out, like it is currently.
Like it is currently.
Okay. All right, so we're good with that one.
Okay.
What's next?
What's next? Okay, food trucks. We're actually kind of moving on to the zoning code at this point.
Out of curiosity, how many more you have?
I've got 2, and then I'm done. But I think there's one other agenda item, which is the fixing of the language for Class D and Class G, which is the package licenses, which I think is pretty simple. So are we good to go?
Yep.
I'm fine.
Okay, we're so close. Okay, so anyway, food trucks obviously pair very well with these, these craft product, the manufacturing type operations in particular, where they're not operating a restaurant. That's really not part of the business model. And the beauty of it is we do have a model that we could just grab and go with if we like, or certainly use it as a starting point of the Plainfield Code. They call them mobile food units. And they make sure that they satisfy certain zoning standards, food safety regulations, and fire district regulations. And there is an annual renewal of a business license that involves passing a fire district inspection. And then what they do is they have it be an administrative approval with the planning director, a site, the property owner actually, where the food truck is going to be, will submit for a site permit. And just like we do outdoor storage, you kind of show where your food truck's going to be. And it's actually the property owner that gets the permit for the food truck. And then, so the food trucks are, they're set up so that they're not going to like camp and be there forever. So in Plainfield, they can only operate for a maximum of 12 hours at any given location, and then they have to observe a 48-hour wait period between, times that they revisit the same location. So the idea here would be if we are going to go forward with like the craft product license, which it seemed like there was agreement to do that this could be something that the zoning code could develop some language and maybe use the Plainfield code as a model and start to look at how food trucks could operate safely in Homer Glen.
Food truck, you mean selling alcohol?
No,
Just food.
it's just, there's like,
She's just exploring this while we're at everything else.
so they would be like an adjunct to an operation that really is like, say a distillery or a brewery operation. They're manufacturing craft product and maybe they have a tap room, but it's not the normal business model for that kind of operation to also have a restaurant. I mean, that could be a beautiful thing if you got all of that going in one place, but this gives you something that, I mean, food trucks typically have very interesting, eclectic, unique fusion type offerings that are different. There's people trying new things. They're very popular. They, like New Lenox, when they have their events in the summertime, they have food trucks. I mean, they were kind to share a list of food truck operators in the area, and I mean, it's a big business, right? You see them sometimes at farmers markets, but there are other events that they can come to as well. I mean, they could be part of events that happen here at Village Hall in the future with programming and things like that.
The only thing I don't understand is so you're saying if let's say Heritage Park, we want to have a weekend event there, I can't have the same food truck there for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Am I reading that wrong here?
Well, I think you would have to take a look at the situation and make it work for here. This is just a model that Plainfield
Under
uses.
their ordinance, you would be able to do it.
That's what their ordinance
That's
does.
weird.
You're reading that correctly, but right, it's
Yeah.
just what's out there right now.
Yeah.
And so like Basin and Cones, they have food trucks there for the weekends on their season.
And those are very good reasons why you wouldn't want to limit it that way. Here you wouldn't want to stop that type of activity because that's not the idea.
My guess is the reasoning to include this, but maybe make exceptions, would be if this is tapped on to one of those craft, you don't want the food truck
Turning into the restaurant.
turning into the restaurant.
I see that part of it, so that's the weird thing.
Or does it have, it has that restriction on having it for 12 hours, but maybe it doesn't have the previous checkbox where you need to have the site owner get the permit, because the reasoning behind that is just to keep people from constantly parking in front of the train station, where you're gonna, captive audience, so, okay, this is the way we're gonna restrict that, is by saying you can't be here, you gotta take 48 off and only 12 on. Whereas if you're making it incumbent upon the site owner to invite them here, I gotta go and get the paperwork to invite them here.
So it needs to be tied in with the business.
Right, so I should be able to invite them here for 3 days, so. And maybe you could cover, like how many you're gonna allow them to invite. My concern about this, and I like the idea of food trucks, I like the idea of restricting it somehow, putting some, maybe not the 12 and 48, I don't think that necessarily works. Like you said, if you wanted to have 3 or 4 trucks for 3 or 4 days, to go along with something. But what about something like the car show that happens every Saturday up in the big parking lot? So, it wouldn't be the Lamont Car Club that would reach out for that because they don't own the property. It would have to probably be either Big R or whoever owns that property. I don't know who the developers. But, what does that do to the nearby businesses? You got Nick's that, gets a fair amount of business that comes that way from that, as well as Cheston's and maybe
It's also across the street.
Right. So again, just kind of looking at that, like, a little bit further back. I like the idea out on Heritage Park or things like that. But how do we impact businesses that have, put down roots here?
Right. It's certainly been a big issue in the city of Chicago. I mean, there's a lot of history there. I think, what Plainfield has done is used it only in this instance of like their craft product manufacturers, just to give them that opportunity. And I don't think they were opening it up to other, but I don't know necessarily that there's anything that restricts a food truck from operating in Homer Glen right now.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, I think, I don't know what other kind of licenses they have to have from the county health department or whatever, but I don't know that there's anything that really restricts them right now. I think this would just set up, maybe, and we can look into this a little bit more, I believe Plainfield is only making it available for that association with the craft product people, and then just setting up how you can make that go. I mean, what if the organizers of the car show decided, hey, we want food trucks, Is there anything really stopping that from happening? Eric, would you know?
Not really.
Yeah.
Probably the big RC,
Yeah.
right, the business who will be a landowner.
Right, it's going to be.
Those off here.
Right. So, I know in the city that there has been an issue because, there is skin in the game with the bricks and mortar restaurants and
Right, we
they
should
talk
be
about
conscious
distances
of
from
that,
and how long, and, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not completely up on what the latest is. But I think this is something that, planning and zoning can consider and look into more. I think it's an opportunity.
Oh, I do think, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm not trying to throw water on this by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that we have to be conscious of the people that are in town.
Mm-hmm.
But this definitely can address other needs without
Do you have any comments about that? No?
All right. So what's the last one?
Okay.
We all good on that? Everybody good on that?
We're all good on that, I think. So I think the the last one here. So last August, the state passed a law, and Governor signed it, that basically took the 100-foot location restriction from churches, schools, hospitals, military stations, homes for the aged, out of the realm of state jurisdiction, and basically said the local municipalities can decide how they want to deal with this. So we do have the 100-foot location distance from, like a new liquor license prospect wanting to come in and get a liquor license open, it could be an existing business or it could be a new restaurant or new business coming in wanting to get a liquor license. Right now in our code, we have a 100-foot location restriction. And that had been there, I'm sure, partly, and I'm probably directed because it was at the state level, so it just got reflected in our code. The state has now said, you know what, we're not going to do that up here because that's really not business friendly. It's really tough to get bills through the General Assembly to get an exemption from this, and that doesn't make any sense. The local folks should be dealing with this. So they took that away. So as long as we're kind of looking at the code in a comprehensive point of view, doesn't hurt to take a look at this one and see if you want to maintain this or if you want to amend it. And just to make things more interesting, the red text on the amended supplement sheet that you got gives you more of the background. We do have an existing business. They've been here a long time. They are located on, as this slide shows, on the wing of the shopping center that has the Jewel that is closest to 143rd Street. And that wing is just across from Goodings Grove School. So businesses that have been interested in opening here and an existing business that would like to get a liquor license, right now, they really can't. They would have to relocate or go find something else. So there is actually an existing business in that wing, and it's Brown's Chicken. And they would like to apply for both liquor and gaming. They have the size. They're 1,800 square feet. We require 1,500 square feet. They do meet the full restaurant definition. So they could, in their current location, be eligible to apply for liquor and gaming, but for this distance issue. So there's no requirement to change anything. This is completely a village board policy question. But we actually have an existing business with they had been interested in doing this back in 2016, and they didn't end up going forward. At that time, I was actually helping them find other locations in town that they could move to where they would be away from these kinds of restrictions. But then they ended up not doing it. Well, they've come back around now, and they're interested in relooking at it. They have done it in several other locations. So the owner is trying to help the franchisee in this case, who operates the business here.
So it's up to you whether you want to keep the restriction in, or if you're okay with letting 100-foot restriction go away. Browns does want to put, they want to dress up the building, they want to put the restaurant in, they do want gaming.
And I don't know if this would be a way to appropriately handle it. Maybe Eric, what do you think? Maybe you could keep the 100-foot distance for brand new businesses, but if it's a business retention thing where it's an existing business,
You can apply for a waiver.
you could have a waiver from this if you're an existing business. That could be one way of handling it.
Yeah, we don't have any restrictions on liquor, right, for a liquor license from school.
100.
Well, that's not.
That's this one.
That's liquor too?
That is, it's actually the liquor. It's not in the gaming,
Gotcha.
but you have to have liquor first. So,
Okay.
yeah, the liquor's driving it here.
And how is that measured? Is it from the
It's-
back wall? Because obviously
We actually had I think it was the Illinois Liquor Commission, an attorney from there, and I had an email from a number of years ago where we asked, how do we do that? And what they said was you measure it from the closest point of the unit that would hold the liquor license.
So the wall.
In this case, it would be the rear entrance,
Rear wall, right.
the rear access to the building of the school, church, hospital, whatever. So it's not the property line, it's to the building. So the visual that you see on the slide is this is just using GIS, and it's only an estimate, and we are estimating where the unit is, the rear access area of it, and we've we've drawn the line over to the building and plunked it, and it's definitely not 100 feet. So
I like the idea of what Eric said about making what did you say about it? Is this
a waiver?
A waiver for existing.
Because you can obviously look at this and say, yes, it does not tick the box of 100 feet, but who's going to be standing?
Well, it's also at the back of the building. It's not-
Right, it's from the back of the building.
Entrance is what
If you're at the front of the building, you have no idea what's to the west.
This restriction really only applies to this area of the village. And just for clarification, there's a hill and there's a fence that separates the school property from the back alley of that section. And that is a K through 4. They are not allowed to walk from there. They have to either be picked up or taken on a bus. Just some facts.
So maybe it's something where the village board would consider waivers, period, or you could just say we can consider waivers for existing businesses. Because if it's a new business, they can look around and say, hey, I better not go here because I don't have a feet from it. But an existing business like this example with Browns, they come in and say, hey, we're requesting a waiver. There's no
Right,
guarantee.
if this were in the same line as the front of the school and, it was the next door down, then I could say, no, that's, it's right there, but this is not, these are really, although they are neighbors, they're really not.
But now, does this rule apply for any of these licenses we just went over?
There's nothing there's
This
no
would-
business that has it within the 100 feet right now.
Right. This would stand, right now we have existing liquor license holders. Any new liquor license prospect coming in, this is something that we have to
Well, I'm
do.
saying like if the nail salon or
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah.
If they took one of these empty spaces, maybe to
Right,
the north
right.
of
Yeah, so
Phoenix.
it affects us being able to fill space potentially. I wouldn't say it's, there are other things that are going to be the reason why a business locates here.
Right.
But you know, if that would be part of their business model, that they need a liquor license, it would restrict them and they would not go here, they would have to.
Or we would know that ahead of time as you start to do your pre-grow with them.
Right.
You would bring that to us like you just did on food property. You could
Right.
say, you know, this is what their intent is.
Right. I mean, it could be, like, as Eric is saying, you could consider that you're open for waivers and not specify what conditions, or you could waive just for existing businesses. But if you wanted to keep it more open, you would consider waivers. You know, this wing has a lot of vacancy in it right now.
And
you know,
to that point, Jeannie, I think maybe you don't limit it to existing businesses. You say it's open, you're going to consider it based on the circumstances of each situation. For example, if there's a hill, if there's a berm, if there's fencing, you might be 50 feet away, but you can't see it.
It's site dependent.
So it's all site dependent. That way, you're not saying, oh, you're not an existing business, so we're not going to consider it. It's open. You guys consider it. Exactly.
that might be the best way to do, just because it's so hard to think of every single thing that's going to come up.
I agree, and this is one of those real world examples that's in front of us now, because the way I understand it, for the liquor and for the gaming, Browns would seriously consider relocating. And that's already an area that's hard for us to fill, and you open up a really bad spot in that, and they may relocate anyways. So this is one of those real world examples where this is getting someone where they're at. They qualify under every other.
Those are the hardest spots to lease in the center.
Yeah, we don't need
I have an
more.
idea for this, but that's another discussion.
All right, so is everyone okay with leaving it the way Eric said, that it'll be on a case-to-case basis?
Yeah.
You guys are,
So that would be new code language though, right? Okay. All right. Thank you for hanging out for that entire thing. That was great to get through. I know it took a long time, but
You guys have put a ton of work into this, and it shows.
So we have to do J2, yeah.
we need to.
There's one other story.
Where did J2 go? There it is. Okay. Okay. So this one's a little bit simpler. But as I mentioned before, I've pretty much introduced this already. We became aware of an opportunity to clarify the intent in the code regarding the Class D and Class G liquor licenses, which are both for package sales. So Class G is beer and wine only, and the Class D is beer, wine, and distilled spirits. So the situation, if you look at the second page of the memo, I don't have any further slides for this. Did you have your memos in front of you? I hope, okay. So under section 8357 in the definitions, and I've worked with Erica on this, we're thinking that if you just add or distilled spirits and make it spirits or distilled spirits, just very specifically identifying we're talking about hard liquor, okay, not alcoholic liquor. In the state identifies alcohol liquor as anything that contains alcohol. I mean, beer, wine, spirits, it's the whole 9 yards. So you have to be careful when you use that term. And we have used that in our code language, and I think it's been misleading. So under the definition for spirits, we would just actually spell it out, spirits or distilled spirits, and the rest of the definition stays the same. And then under the Class D language of the code, we would just change the term alcoholic liquor to distilled spirits. And so it would read, and then the sale of liquor would be to distilled spirits. So it would be make it very clear that the Class D package license, which is for beer, wine, and distilled spirits, that if we're talking about the sale of distilled spirits conducted on the premises, which is really for the primary business activity is other retail sales. So this is an ancillary retail activity on the premises. That's when you have to confine the distilled spirits, okay? And it's not that you have to confine the beer and wine. The beer and wine should be available in the coolers just for the customers to go pick out what they want and come to the checkout and go. They don't have to ask somebody for that six-pack up there. Because I don't think that was the intent. And I'm, just making assumptions about what the intent is here, so that, just looking for clarification from the board that this would fix it and this would make it right. And then on the Class G license, which is really just for beer and wine, we don't need to talk about this whole clause, this whole paragraph number 2, talking about what I just mentioned about confining alcoholic liquor, because we're only handling beer and wine anyway. So just disappear, just delete that. And I think that would actually fix the problem.
I think that's what the intent was.
Right.
That would be my intent. I wasn't here when these classifications were debated, but
Yeah.
I would easily see that
Yeah.
being.
So with that, I think that pretty much takes care of it. So what we're looking for then, this clarification could happen quicker than the whole rest of the classifications we just went over earlier tonight. Do you want to go ahead and, do we need I guess we need a
You're going to need an ordinance to do it.
We need an ordinance to do it. So.
You can bring that up at the next meeting as opposed to all the other things that are.
Right, okay, so we could probably staff just put that together, right? Because we're 99% there. Okay, so.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do we have prohibitions or any restrictions on places that serve alcohol and have a drive-through? Nick's Barbecue, it's the one I can think of off the top of my head, and it was something I've written down in my notes, and I probably should have covered it under one of those other things, but.
Right. No, we don't, we do not, I don't believe our code is allowing any sale for drive-through operation. I have seen other communities where they have.
A prohibition.
No, they have it in their code to allow it. Places like, I think, DeKalb, they're kind of far west, maybe.
The state of Wisconsin.
Maybe Sycamore, yeah, there are some in much more rural kind of situations where they do have, like it's a long-term kind of, like a Kenwood that's been around for years and years, but they have a drive-through and they do allow it, but that's another code modification for that.
So our restaurant classifications, the A, B, and F, all say alcohol liquor sales provided for on-premises consumption only.
And we're not proposing the drive-through here right now. We
No, I'm not
that's
proposing
defect.
it either. I just want to know if we specifically had a prohibition against it.
Sorry.
Just because everything says it's for on-site consumption, right?
The other one would have been at Eddie's, same thing.
Okay, yeah, no, they have a drive-through.
Is
it still functional?
I think it's still functional, but they've got some covering off so they can't see it.
They would allow your pizza guy to drive up to the window and get your beer.
But Eddie's unfortunately has closed now, but that could become something else very soon, so is this something we might want to explore? Eddie's could open up again, there's a going concern there essentially, it's turnkey. This gentleman, Nick Brook, will spend a lot of money building that out if somebody can come in, but is that something we want to explore going forward? Because, again, I get it that it says, for on-site premises consumption, but, I'm always already, you put it in there. If you don't want it going out that window, you say, and nothing will go out that window, not just leave it to somebody to figure out what you actually meant by on-site.
Well, what about Starbucks? You were talking about coffee shops.
Well, yeah,
Bring it BYOB.
again, not saying there's a prohibition on having a drive-through, just saying you cannot serve anything out the drive-through window. So.
Okay. Next time, is there any old business? Is there any new business? Next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into an executive session for purposes of discussing personnel?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're going to go in executive session. There is no action that's going to be taken.